Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another race weekend in the Skip Barber Community Trophy Season 5 as brought to you on the Premier Sim Racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing and proudly powered by none other than Musical Money Limited and the Old Git Racing Team. We make our way into 2026 and a happy new year to you all around the world whether you are tuning in today or catching this broadcast after it has aired. But either way, we're into a new year and with it we're into a new pair of rounds of racing. It's time for rounds 5 and 6 of the Championship, and we've made our way to our final destination in our trip of the United Kingdom. We've made our way northwestwards all the way to the Oulton Park circuit. Located in the Cheshire County countryside, this is a circuit that needs no introduction from a domestic level, having been elevated to the ranks of the circuit that revived motor racing in the northwest of the United Kingdom. And that's exactly why it was built and opened in 1953, was to generate fanfare in the northwest of England and give those living further north and also further westward an opportunity to do motorsport where Brands Hatch and Donington Park, to name two, could not offer it quite so. And since then it is a circuit that has gradually evolved in its popularity to an absolute peak which continues to only grow day in, day out. But as we come from history back to the present, where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this broadcast live from circuit side as you tune in tonight on YouTube. This broadcast being brought to you by none other than Paul Walsh Productions, and in the commentary booth you have myself. My name is Paul Walsh and I'll be covering all your racing action as it unfolds in another pair of absolutely exciting and entertaining rounds. Speaking of which, in terms of our schedule for tonight, times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinate Time UTC, we can see in approximately 14 minutes time we'll be making our way out there into our qualifying session. 10 minutes in duration once again, but a very different format compared to our previous two race weekends. More on that in due course, after which we'll then be seeing our drivers get themselves set to go onto the grid for our round 5 sprint race of 20 minutes in length, due to get underway at 5 to 8 this evening, and then we'll take a brief breather before returning to the grid at just after 20 past 8 this evening for the round 6 feature race, with 30 minutes on the clock and a bit of strategy involved as well. We've definitely got plenty to look forward to here today as our drivers get ready to continue their championship campaigns in 2026. But as we make our way into this round, we need to give you a recap of the story so far and what is lying in wait today. And as we can see then, in terms of our calendar, it is the 4th of January 2026. And we have made our way then all the way from December to this point, and we've got a long way to go. Indeed, this is only the third of 12 race weekends, and therefore come the end of today, we are going to have completed the first quarter. The Oulton Park circuit plays host, having made our way from the Donington Park circuit, and at the national circuit last time out, well, what a story it was. At the national circuit of the heart of British motorsport, due to its location in the Leicestershire County, and we did see from all the drivers what was some absolutely brilliant battling, but in particular in round number 3, it would be Adam Tomkins who would land victory from pole position, having become our 2-time pole sitter now. Meanwhile, in round number 4, in the feature race, strategy was the big key, and it was Marcus Byfeldt who delivered an absolutely incredible overcut strategy with some scintillating fuel saving to make sure he had his name to the winner's books. But who will put their names into the history books of Oulton Park today? That's what we're about to find out. And what we can see is we've moved to a 10-minute open qualifying session for today, a very different style of qualifying session compared to our previous 2 race weekends. We opened up, of course, at Brands Hatch with a 3-lap average, and last time out it was a 3-lap close. But what exactly does a 10-minute open session mean? We'll cover that for you very shortly indeed, ladies and gentlemen. But before we do come on to that, one key thing we do need to do, of course, is talk a little bit about what lies in wait when it comes to the standings. That's right, after our first 2 race weekends, we can now start to bring you the standings going into each and every round, and these are the standings then after 4 rounds. And what we can see in terms of our top 15, it is Steff Herrmann who leads the way by 7 points over Adam Tomkins. What's been the delta between the two of them? It has been the ultimate consistency of Herrmann, whereby he has yet to take a win this season, and he's absolutely salivating the prospect of one, and should he take a win tonight, he may be able to take control of this championship campaign. But he is the only driver who has been able to finish 4 times out of 4 races on the podium, and that's why he has that 7-point advantage over Adam Tomkins, or Mr. Pole Sitter as we'd like to refer to him, and Mr. Oulton Park as well, as in his post-round interview last time out at Donington Park, he said that given this is his home circuit, he's going to be giving it everything today to make sure he brings home at least 1 win, if not both of them. And for Tomkins, if he should bring home both wins, he would leapfrog his way back into lead. Daniel Artuga sits in 3rd. He was one of the big stars of Brands Hatch, however it all went wrong last time out at the Donington Park circuit, in the fact that he wasn't quite able to land a podium podium nor a win, and therefore he falls into a third place slot, albeit quite comfortably ahead of Jeff Randall, with the Old Git Racing Team driver there in fourth place, really earmarking the second portion of the field. He's ahead of both Neil Gardner and Nathan Wade, equidistant by 17 points, with Gardner ahead of Wade based on result countback, and it's Marcus Byfeldt, Gordon van den Bergen, Remco Plaisir and Brian Kelly who complete your top 10. However, stay transfixed for a brief moment on the man who's in 10th place, Brian Kelly. Why is he so important? The reason he's so important is because he achieved absolute redemption in the feature race last time out at Donington Park after a missed opportunity in the sprint race to try and bring home a podium, if not the win. He demonstrated alongside Steff Herrmann what was patience and tactical ingenuity in equal measure. Fuel saving alongside the championship leader, and suddenly Brian Kelly leaped his way all the way ahead of a very hungry pack for the podium to make sure he was the third place finisher. So that's why you've got to keep your eyes out for him today. He's definitely looking very quick and only made his debut last time out. Peter Suapanki, meanwhile, sits in 11th place there, put on a good display at Brands Hatch. Meanwhile, at Donington Park, he was left in a little bit of anonymity, and you could say the same to a degree for George Mattock, because he wasn't at Brands Hatch as much as he was at Donington Park, and he absolutely put on a great show for us at Donington Park, no doubt about that, ahead of Dennis Johansson, with Tom Payne and Ludwig Sauer completing your top 15. Outside the top 15, looking from 16th through to 30th, and this is where we'll draw the line on giving you the update on the standings. What we can see there is Titus de Jong currently. He sits in quite a happy 16th place on 23 points, 3 ahead of what is the quartet there of Chris Wayne, Christopher Geros, also Terry McGrauther and James McRitchie. And then we do have a bit of a gap there to Marcus Dorner, who does have quite a few penalty points against his name, and that's why he sits in 21st place, ahead of Simon of Wareham. And then we have Joshua Harley, Klaus Biedermann, Paul Smithhurst, Frederick Neptune, Derek Kennedy, Pedro Marimon Cladera, Benjamin Harris, and Daniel Salmon completing your top 30 in the Drivers' Championship. We do have more competitors than 30, but we'll only ever cover the top 30, and therefore that will give a little bit of motivation for our drivers who are towards the bottom end of the table to try and push their way to get into the top 30 ranks. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, as we then come back to the here and now, let's talk a little bit then about our host circuit for today. Is, of course, the international out of the Oulton Park circuit. However, we are subtracting the Britten chicane. The chicane that's normally associated with the exit of Shell Oil's corner at turn number 5 and 6 on this diagram. You would have Britten chicane there, and it breaks up the run essentially over the hilltop for our drivers then make the way into the Hislop chicane at turns 7, 8 and 9 on this circuit map. But we decided to get rid of the chicane, and that opens up the hilltop run or the backstretch to a greater overtaking opportunity. We should at this point, of course, say a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just their brilliant simulator on which we host this series, but also the absolutely fantastic track maps that become available as a result of iRacing, and long may they continue because they're absolutely impressive and enable us to really see these tracks in all their wonderful glory. Now, this circuit, located near the village of Little Budworth in the county of Cheshire in England, the United Kingdom, it definitely is one of the domestic heroes of motorsport in the United Kingdom, and the reason being because it was a circuit that was originally born on a load of land, and indeed the Old Hall, where it situates itself just off of turn number 1. Meanwhile, Lodge Bend at turn number 13, that's where you'll find the old lodge housing for the original country estate on which this circuit was erected. However, whilst the estate has gone, it did disappear in the best part of the Second World War due to catching fire, albeit not associated with a bombing, interestingly enough, a completely separate incident. The circuit has withstood the test of time. There's no doubt about that. It's gone through a couple of revisions over its history, but no extensive changes, and that's why this 2.69 mile circuit today is definitely one that has been steeped in history, and we look forward to seeing how our drivers will add their names to the history tables. Because they roar the way across the start-finish line straight, they'll head into Old Hall Corner at turn number 1. Then it's all going to be around down the avenue and in towards Denton's at turn number 2. And this is where the biggest theme of the Oulton Park circuit will kick off, and that is aggressive and non-stop undulations or elevation changes. Because downhill through Denton's, they'll go into Cascade at turn number 3, a heavily off-camber on entry corner that flattens out very aggressively on exit, and now drivers will need to carry all the speed past the lakeside and up towards Island Bend at turn number 4. A fast sweeping left-hander where 2-3 wide is not impossible, but somebody's going to have to back out at some point. If not, then they'll have to go hard on the brakes, battling into Shell Oil's corner at turn number 5, and there they'll need to abuse all the camber of the road should they want to come out ahead before making their way onto the backstretch through the curve of 6 at Hilltop. Down the Hilltop they'll come and into the break-ins over the Hislop chicane at turn 7, 8, and then they'll make their way into Knickerbrook corner at turn number 9, which has an interesting history with regards to its name. We'll come on to that a little bit more later. We won't bore you with that right now, but as our drivers make their way out of Knickerbrook, it's then uphill through Clay Hill, unsighted through Water Tower corner, and into Druids Bend at turn number 12, and unlike Brands Hatch, this is not a hairpin, it's a double apex right-hander where it's off camber all the way through the corner with varying degrees of elevation change between the two apexes. That sounds complex, does it not? Indeed, it's the hardest corner in the circuit, if not in the entirety of the United Kingdom, to get right, and our drivers will demonstrate exactly why that is the case when we ride on board with them in qualifying tonight. After that, it's a run underneath the Warwick Bridge and in towards Lodge Bend at turn number 13, and get it right out there. It'll be the dip before the leap, as they leap their way over the crest of turn number 14, a deer leap, and complete lap to only do it once again. But as we make our way then into this round as well, let's talk a little bit about our rules. Now, this is an open setup series with drivers allowed to bring their setup of their choosing to each and every session, whether it be practice, qualifying, or the races. However, car fuel load-wise, we have seen the restriction go from 50% to 47% for all race day sessions. Now, this is only a small tweak of 3%, but the organisers have decided, based on the first 4 rounds, particularly in the feature races with the strategy, that the 50% fuel tank was offering too big a fuel tank and too large of a pit window. So the idea is, by bringing this slightly down, it will make the strategy a little bit simpler, but what it will also do is force drivers to pit a lot more closely in the pit window. It'll take away a small amount of strategic variety, but it also means then it places a bigger emphasis on picking exactly the right time to pit, because in fairness, we have seen over the first 2 feature races, some drivers have pitted as early as the opening 8 minutes of the race, whereas others have gone on for the best part of 25 to 27 minutes of the race, whereas we want to try and bring that window down a little bit to the region of approximately around 10 to 20 minutes into the race, therefore to give plenty of options, but also make sure that drivers can't just simply hold on to lead for the entirety of the race and stay out of trouble. Now, qualifying wise, it's a 10-minute open qualifying format tonight. What does that mean? The session is open. Therefore, all of drivers will be on circuit together. That's right, the previous sessions you've seen, they've all been in closed sessions where they're by themselves on circuit. In this one, you've got 10 minutes, but you've got the best part, if I do double check the entry list, you've got the best part of 37 drivers. That's right, 37 drives on a 2.7 mile circuit. You do the quick mathematics, that's very little miles per driver available, and all drivers are going to try and find the right amount of space should they want to come out on top in qualifying, because it's their fastest lap set in the session, which is going to set exactly where they sit on the grid for our first of our 2 races. And when we do come around to our races, well, of course, they'll commence by a standing start, as is the tradition of this series and Skip Barber Formula 2000 racing. And what we will also see there is that they have 1 fast repair available in each race, should they need to use it. Hopefully not, of course. We don't see any cars get damaged, although these cars are quite sensitive to damage, it must be said, and that has been proven already this season. But more importantly, we should see if our drivers get to 17 instant points or more, they'll pick up a drive-through penalty, get to 21, and it will be disqualification. But then you may be asking, how exactly do we plan to set the grid for the purposes of our feature race? It'll be set based on the finisher positions of the sprint race, with the top 15 finisher positions of the sprint inverted. So whoever wins round number 5 today, they start in 15th place for round number 6. Conversely, we then flip that order all the way down to the 15th place finisher from the sprint. They start on pole for the purposes of the feature, or round number 6, and in turn, those who finish 16th and downwards, they start exactly where they finish from the sprint going into the feature. And in the feature race, there is 1 mandatory pit stop where drivers must refuel, but changing tyres is entirely optional, and we're not expecting anyone to take a tyre change because the tyres on these skippies can last an extended period of time. Right, that's enough rules and regulation, that's enough scene setting, let's head back to circuit side, and as we do, well, we've not got too long to go then, ladies and gentlemen, before we do get set for what is expected to be a very interesting qualifying session, because up until this point, everybody has had breathing room, everyone has had the opportunity not to step on each other's toes, but today, we're going to put them all in the proverbial New Year's ballroom of Oulton Park, and we're going to get them all to dance around this circuit, and hopefully, even with 37 cars out on circuit, in that 10-minute window, everyone's going to find some space for each other to respect each other's wishes, but also find a way to be able to make the way around here and deliver some golden laps. And there's going to be a lot of pressure from the outset, and that is what's going to be key. But we've also got plenty of new faces on the grid today, some of which are returning drivers, including this man, Kevin Budgen, who makes his way on around right now. And well, what a story with regards to Kevin. And the fact that he only said hello to the community as of earlier today, and I do believe he has not touched his simulator and he's not touched the Skip Barber Formula 2000 machine for the best part of a couple of years. So therefore, this really is a return to sim racing for Mr. Budgen, but we look forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do today in number 18, and we wish him the best of luck, and he's looking forward to this, I can tell you that. And indeed, everyone was very happy to see that he's returning, and what a way to return right as we make our way into 2026. Well, if it was a New Year's resolution, we applaud him for it, no doubt about it, and perhaps we'll catch a word of him later on in today's broadcast. Now, as he roars his way And down the hill there into Cascades, he's definitely getting to grip with the car. And the fact that he's put himself right in the middle of the practice times right now shows that despite the fact he hasn't had as much practice as others, the old experience he has doesn't go away. We also do have another returning name, a big returning name. Here he is in the number 85, your Season 1 runner-up, your Season 4 runner-up. Just to talk about two of his historical achievements, it is Adam Miles. Can he, at long last, bring home a title this season? We've missed the first 4 rounds, so he's at a points disadvantage. But to be fair, if we have to compare him to previous champion Nathan Wade, who missed multiple rounds in some seasons and still became a champion, it's not impossible from this point onwards, albeit he's picked up a black flag there, I believe, for track limits on his lap. But Adam Miles will be definitely very keen to try and establish himself in the championship standings as soon as possible tonight. And we look forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do. But as he cools things on down very shortly, we also do welcome to the grid none other than what is Jeroen Welnink, and I do believe we have Welnink somewhere out there at the moment. In fact, he's in the pit lane, and also we do have a newcomer in the form of Josephine Becker, and we'll show you them out of the circuit when we do head into qualifying. We've also got a couple of other newcomers on the grid. We'll introduce them as well, but with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to head to qualifying. 10 minutes. Who's going to be on pole? Let's find out. So, without further ado, 10 minutes ticks away, and it will tick away very quickly indeed. We can already see the clock making its way upwards there. Normally we count down. We might adjust that for the broadcast later on this season, because I do know that some of you prefer to count downwards rather than upwards. But either way, forgetting about which way the clock counts, it's going to run out of time either way, as Adam Tomkins is one of the very first to launch his way out the pit lane, and will miss the pole position. And the man who right now wants to make sure he takes victory here at his home circuit, you can understand why he's the first out there. It's not because he's getting special priority. If we were to give special priority, it would be to your championship leader, Steff Herrmann. It's simply because he was the very first to get in the car and say, right, I am going. Meanwhile, Steff Herrmann decides to come out the pit lane a lot later, but there's a bit of an advantage to this, and there's also a disadvantage. What exactly are we referring to here? Well, what you've got to keep in mind is, depending on where you are on circuit and in the order, particularly when you've got the best part of 35 plus cars out there, if you find yourself right in the midst of it, as that's Budgen going very wide, and I believe going for a spin there on the exit Cascades, but he'll get it back onto the circuit very gradually. It's a good idea he's got the mistake out the way now, rather than later on in the session when the laps really do matter, albeit time is going to tick away quite quickly. Well, the point we're going to say about Steff Herrmann is, and Adam Miles, they're at the opposite ends of the spectrum. Miles being the first out, what it does mean, he's got all the circuit in front of him to use. He doesn't have anybody to take a distant slipstream off of. Conversely, Steff Herrmann, he's towards the back of the field, therefore he might be able to find a couple of drives to get the toe off of, but also he's got no pressure behind him as such. He can afford to back off, give himself space to all the other cars. But meanwhile, if you're someone like Joshua Harley, who we see here right in the thick of the pack, well, the advantage is you will get the slipstream off of one or more cars. The only problem is, if the car in front of you starts to go slower, you can't, unfortunately, simply say to the driver in front that you are blocking me, I'm going to dive up the inside of you. Because remember, in qualifying, overtaking has a very different rule set to it. In a race, overtaking is absolutely fair as long as you beat the driver to the apex of the corner and have a certain amount of car overlap where you do it around the outside alternative, but the rules vary. We're simplifying. In qualifying, if the driver in front of you is on a valid lap, but you are faster than behind, they have right of way. You have no right to dive for them. You have no right to try and force them out the way. And that's why qualifying always becomes very challenging when you've got these open sessions where you've got everybody together, because in an ideal world, everyone would run the same lap time, but the cars behind would run a faster lap time because they pick up the toe. But not everybody is equal when it comes to lap time from circuit to circuit and week to week and round to round. And therefore now you can already see how Rody van der Meijden, for example, well, he's got a bit of pressure behind him there, as that is going to be the number 20 George Mattock ride in the back of him. But conversely, he's also got two cars in front. They're trying to figure out their position to each other, and that's going to make things even more difficult as they make their way up towards Island Bend. But we look forward to seeing what they are able to achieve here. Now, we do have a couple of other names who have made their way onto the grid today, and in terms of introducing them as well, as I just double check my notes here to make sure I say the right people's names, we do have David, none other than Dave Dowson. Not David, he's introduced as Dave to us, and therefore we'll take that name as gospel, as we do see a bit of run wide there from Mattock, who now brings himself back together, but that will be an invalidated lap with the off track. And we also do have none other than James Molyneux, who's made his way onto the grid. And here is James Molyneux in the number 34, and a very lovely livery car there. And as he makes his way onwards, and I'm getting slight P51 Mustang vibes off that car there, and I would be right. I think that's a tribute there to the United States Army Air Force. P51 Mustang, what was designed, or liveries if you will, dating back to 1944. But I'm going to put my love for military history and aircraft aside, because we're here for motorsport today, and I love motorsport just as well. But we also do say hello to Dave Dowson, as we can see him here in a very nice livery machine. Let's hold up a second. Who's taking a bit of a rallycross approach there? Did they avoid the tyre barrier coming out of Druids? I do not know. I think that might have been there none other than what was it Roddy van der Maiden getting it wrong? Yes, it was, but somehow, some way he avoided hitting the barrier this time today. But as he makes his way back on the circuit, that definitely was not the way he wanted to start off this qualifying session. But speaking of starting off qualifying sessions, we do normally start one with an onboard lap, one of our drivers. And in fact, we're going to be getting on board here with Frederick Neptune very shortly, as he makes his way through turn number 13, Old Lodge Bend, and now over the Deer Leap, and on board we go for a flying lap around the Oulton Park International Circuit. So as Neptune makes his way in towards turn number 1, heading into Old Hall Corner. No real brake mark here. You've got to do this on muscle memory and memory alone. Dropping a fourth gear. They're drifting wide. Oh, goodness me. The dirtier Budgeon's car in front causing Neptune to carry way too much speed. And well, that's going to be an invalidated lap very quickly there. And he'll immediately tow to the pits. And as he does so, well, we now look to other drivers there. Joshua Harley. It may be a bit difficult to get an on-board lap or drivers at this rate. We will try it again very shortly. In fact, we might get an on-board lap with the man who's currently your pole sitter, Adam Tomkins. He's got nobody to give him a draft here, and right now Tomkins is a tenth faster than everybody else out there who has got some slipstream. So perhaps there's some method in the madness, and perhaps Adam Tomkins is also demonstrating the fact that right now he definitely is the one to beat. We will see what he's going to be able to do. It's going to be no mean feat from Adam Tomkins as he roars his way sideways through the corner there. But right now, goodness me, Adam Tomkins is absolutely gliding, and it's showing as he gets ready to come to the end of his second flying lap. Marcus Dorner, meanwhile, he's a bit further back, your second fastest, right ahead of Steff Herrmann, albeit Herrmann's even further back in that running order. But all these drivers right now, all running processionally together at the moment, and all displaying what is their ability to some extent or the other. But it does look as though Marcus Dorner is now starting to pick up the paces a little bit in the 777 as Martin van Eckelen, he goes second fastest. Adam Tomkins raises the bar to 47.9, but Adam Miles, well, it's going to be the battle of the Adams here, and right now Adam Miles puts himself on provisional pole by 2 tenths as Jesus Cabal, also Marcus Dorner and Brian Kelly, they all jump up. So Tomkins was looking quick on his first lap, but now suddenly everybody else has found the right driver to run with inside that top 10, and they're all picking up the tow. So perhaps Miles, for all the clear air that he's coveted, perhaps this is not the way to do it. But we look back to Josephine Becker as they make the way onto this grid for the first time this season. And in fact, we get on board with Becker as they roar the way in towards turn number 1. As in towards the opening quarter here and taking a nice approach to the apex line, holding fourth gear and exiting. Now flat out they'll go all the way up towards turn number 2. Into Denton's, they come down blind on the summit and now onto the brakes nice and early there to make their way into Cascade, holding fourth gear as they do, and now back on full throttle and heading up towards Island Bend. At this point, it's all about a bit of breathing room here. You've got a nice long run, and suddenly that left-hander will appear. Up into fifth gear, chuck the car in, lift off the throttle, perhaps stab a little bit of brake to get the nose pitched forward, and now bring it over to the left-hand side to open up Shell Oil's corner as much as possible. Brake nice and late, about 75 metres from apex approach. Second gear and full throttle by the time you get to the apex, so that way you can carry all the speed all the way now down towards what will be the Hislop chicane. There's Britton's on your left. We're not taking that today, and that's why it's coned off. But Becker here picking up a distance of the car in front, so good run here from Josephine Becker as the German driver now makes their way down towards the chicane, looking to the left for the brake marker, braking it just before the 100 metre board down the second gear, trailing in very smoothly right into left. A very small exit run there to keep the car to the left hand side to open up Knickerbrook corner, but turns it a bit prematurely. That's going to compromise the exit line, albeit Becker just keeping 2 wheels within the white line, so therefore it's still a valid lap. And Becker now making the way over Clay Hill, now into Water Tower corner, in towards the left hander and into Druid. This is the blindside corner. There's the first apex. You aim for that to let the car roll deep to then hit the second apex. Alternatively, you can go deep at the first apex and just turn it into a very late apex corner. The second apex is the one and only apex in that approach. But now in towards Old Hall corner, onto the brakes. That Lodge Bend here and down through the gearbox into second gear. Becker exiting now and over the crest she goes. And as the car does, well, Becker decides to back off there, not happy with the lap and looking for a bit of slipstream. But as Becker calms things down, well, it was an aggressive lap, but thinks there's a bit more time out out there, but is there really? Because we've only got 1 minute 50 left on the clock, and Becker's crossed the line. That's going to be it, unless they can squeeze in one more lap. They've left this very fine indeed, because keep in mind, whereas in the previous qualifying sessions, the closed sessions, we have no overtime allowance. Here today, we will have permitted overtime. So when the clock strikes 10 minutes, if a driver is on the lap, they are allowed to finish it, but they may not start a new one. And that is going to add another conundrum here. This qualifying session will be a bit longer, but we do say hello there to Hot Rod Holshi, who says, I love this track, but today I'm not able to make it, but wish all a lot of fun. Best greetings from the Tyrol, Austria region. And well, glad to have you tuning in with us, Hot Rod Holshi, and I hope you're doing well, and a happy new year to you. And well, we look forward to seeing you back on circuit in due course in the weeks ahead. But right now, some drivers will get one more lap in, others will not, as that was Jeff Randall going sideways, exiting stage left on the camera, and the camera picks him up. And for Jeff Randall, that was a big error, and one that he's going to be penalised for in terms of finding his way to that barrier. But what exactly happened to Jeff Randall? Here's a replay. So this was Randall making his way then in towards Druids Bend, went onto the brakes, rear left tyre touched the grass, and that kicked the rear of the car sideways, tried to counter-correct it, and in the end slid to the barrier. And for Randall, that's going to be it in qualifying. That's going to be a damaged car, and therefore the next lap he goes for, he will get one more lap in, but I suspect it's going to be a car that he's going to be battling uphill with every step of the way. But such an easy mistake to make, and for Jeff Randall there, that has not worked at all. But that's the pressure when you're trying to go for a top 5 qualifying spot here, and everyone knows it. That's why we've seen it be so close. Are there any other big surprises in this qualifying session right now with 10 seconds left on the clock? Peter Suapanki, Randall's teammate, being one of them, down in 16th place as Steff Herrmann jumps up to 4th. So Herrmann has left it late, but he's finding a bit more pace right in the closing stages. There goes the clock. And in fact, we don't have any overtime, ladies and gentlemen. I do apologise for misinforming you about that. So qualifying immediately ends there, and that means we now make our way onto the grid for our first or 2 races. So how exactly do they line up for round number 5? Well, here we go. This is your round 5 grid, and it is Adam Miles who takes pole position, breaking the stranglehold that Adam Tomkins has had on pole positions so far this season. But joining him on the front row is the pole position man of Adam Tomkins from the previous 2 race weekends. There'll be Martin van Eckelen, who starts in 3rd, ahead of Steff Herrmann, who starts 4th, the championship leader. And then on row number 3, we will have Marcus Byfeldt and Jesus Cabal. And then on row 4, it's Jeff Randall for Old Racing Team, with the car quickly repaired by the team, and the 777 machine of Marcus Dorner. And then completing your top 10, it is going to be Bryan Kelly and Chris Wayne. Wayne back inside the top 10 for Old Racing Team once again. And then starting 11th, best of the rest, it's going to be Titus de Jong for Agent Turtle Racing, head of Christopher Geros Jr. On row 7, we have the returning driver of Kevin Budgen. Good to see him do well in qualifying, starting 13th. That's a great go from him, ahead of none other than Dennis Johansson, with George Matuk and Josefine Becker starting on your 8th row. Then we do have on row number 9, Peter Suapanki for Old Racing Team and Jeroen Velink. And then behind the Dutchman, it'll be the Australian of Neil Gardner. And then we have completing your top 20, none other than Nathan Wade. Outside the top 20, starting in 21st, it's Daniel Atuga with a poor qualifying points, being caught out by the open session perhaps, ahead of Remco Placier, with Simon Wareham and Dave Dawson on your 12th row. Row 13, it's Mara Farag and Pedro Marimon Cladera, ahead of Ronnie Schubert and Joshua Harley. And completing your top 30, it's going to be Marcel de Hint and David Kennedy. We've got a few more rows to go here. On row number 16, starting 31st, it'll be David Elliott, ahead of Frederick Neptune, with James Molyneux and Tom Payne on row 17, ahead of Rody van der Meyden and Benjamin Harris. And last but not least, with no valid time to his name, no Richie Robinson. So that's how our 37 drivers will line up, ladies and gentlemen. The grid is almost set, and here come the lights. It's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, it's firing lights! And it's lights out, and away we go for round number 5 of the championship as Adam Miles gets a good start. Adam Tomkins is a bit slow off the line, but Martin van Eckelen also follows suit. So therefore, Miles, Tomkins and Eckelen are all going to have a smooth start here, but they won't make any progress on each other. But we can see Marcus Dorner, meanwhile, battling with Jeff Randall straight away into the opening quarter, but most of the field is safely all through. Kevin Budgen's fallen back a place to Dennis Johansson. A bit of a slow start there from Budgen. I wonder whether he almost stalled it. It's very easy to do with these cars, because you do have to manage the clutch and the throttle in equal measure. But as they make their way down through Cascades and on onwards they go towards Island Bend. Everyone's safely on through the opening sequence of corners. We have got a bit of a split in the field, however, that's emerged there, and I think there's been a bit of fighting. Neil Gardner's really struggled at the start of this race, and we've got a lot of two wides here in the bottom half of the field as they make the way in towards Island Bend. So a bit of a split in the field, but as we do see all the drivers make the way in right now, well, it's going to be Frederick Neptune and James Molyneux fighting side by side, albeit Neptune in the end is going to hold on behind him, and Tom Payne's also trying to get involved there. There is Neptune battling side by side with Payne, and will the Payne special livery right now trying to hold on. Neptune's going to be on the inside as they make the way over the hilltop. Back to the front of the field, Adam Tomkins versus Adam Miles. They're too wide on entry, and Tomkins now takes the lead. However, I get the feeling that Miles here might be playing the game of work together now, fight later, rather than fighting early and drawing everybody into this pack, because the slipstream is going to be so powerful over the crest of hilltop. But hold up a second, we've had a bit of madness kick off at what is the chicane. That is Dave Dowson's car having to be towed to the pits. We've also got another car parked in the wrong direction. That's Ronnie Schubert there, who I think right now is beached in the grass. We're going to need to get a replay of that when we can, ladies and gentlemen, because we've lost Dowson and we've also lost Schubert in the opening lap, and I think there's a bit more than meets the eye. But meanwhile, that is almost 3 wide there between Payne, Molyneux and Elliott. Molyneux and Elliott going side by side right now, and that is David Elliott in the all-Irish flag machine. Indeed, the livery there matches his national flag, and as he roars his way underneath the Warwick Bridge, he'll back off there behind Molyneux, but they're fighting each other hard, and behind Marcel de Hint and Frederick Neptune are fighting each other with Neptune on the inside there, and a big lock-up for Marcel de Hint. We'll see him fall back behind once again. We've got some damage to the Hint's car, so that might explain why he's locked up, and he's into the pits as well. So 1 lap is down, we've got plenty more to go, and after 1 lap, it's Adam Tomkins who leads ahead of Adam Miles. Then we have Martin van Eckelen in third, ahead of Steff Herrmann, followed by Marcus Byfeldt. Your top 5 is practically unchanged, minus Tomkins getting ahead of Miles towards the end of lap 1. Jesus Cabal sits 6th, ahead of Jeff Randall. Then it's Marcus Dorner in 8th, ahead of Brian Kelly, and Chris Wayne rounds off your top 10, with Dennis Johansson meanwhile in 11th place, best of the rest, and he has opened up a 2-second gap to George Mattock, and Mattock right now leads the second portion of the field. He's bringing Josephine Becker along behind him, as well as Peter Sorpanke and Kevin Budgeon. Budgeon has lost another place, but he has not lost the pace compared to the cars in front, and that's good to see. So Budgeon here still staying well in the hunt, and the top 15 finish will be worth a good haul of points. But onwards they come then towards the hilltop back straight, and as they do, oh goodness me, it's getting a little bit feisty now inside the top 5. That is Steff Herrmann and Marcus Byfeldt trying to make progress. Byfeldt goes out a bit wide, but in the end just squeezes his way past Martin van Eckelen. Van Eckelen there being very polite. That is probably the most polite skippy racing I've seen from him so far this season, as we ride on board the front wing here of the number 2, and it's understandable why he's doing this. Is all just to simply make sure that they don't lose the leaders. But you can definitely see that Herrmann and Byfeldt have both now tried to move themselves forward. Why is that important so early on? The importance of it is they want to establish track position, because overtaking here at Oulton Park can be challenging even in these skippy machines. You'll notice that the circuit is not naturally wide, and when it is raced by, say, TCR UK, alternatively GV3 or Great British Formula 3, is a circuit where normally the lead car going onto the final lap has the best chance to win, not because of the fact that the driver behind has no ability to overtake, but because overtaking here is limited normally to certain points in the circuit, normally to the heavy braking zones, unless the driver in front completely makes a major mistake. We'll have to wait and see where any big mistakes come, but Martin van Eckelen, they're giving you a demonstration on the front wing of his car, just how many small bumps and elevation changes there are over the course of individual corners at the start of the lap, as there are over the entirety of that. It's that constant, aggressive, undulating nature of Oulton Park, which makes it such a difficult circuit to go quick at. You can pick it up quite easily, however, finding pace around here is as much understanding every little millimetre of elevation change in the tarmac as it is where to your apex points. As Eckelen continues to hold inside the top 5 right now, coming on through. We do say hello there to Traditional Oats, who's enjoying the commentary, and thank you, good sir or madam. Hope you're doing well. I'm glad to hear you're enjoying it. But coming back to your leaders right now, Miles and Tomkins again. They're playing the switcheroo, but look at Herrmann getting a lot closer this time. Look at Byfeldt. They're now starting to think more and more here, and this is going to put a bit of pressure onto Miles and Tomkins now, in the fact that both drivers will be looking in their rearview mirrors and thinking, right, do I need to be the leader now? Do I need to actually get my fangs out and stop the drivers behind from coming on through? Tomkins has moved back into lead. Miles is in second, but Herrmann and Byfeldt are up in the tempo 5 minutes into this race. We're going to see a lot more fighting later on, but it's a sign of things to come. Further back in the field, Daniel Ortuga, the man who started 21st and the man with a plan in round number 2 at Brands Hatch. Well, right now he finds himself at a 3 wide. Renko placing Neil Gardner. He's in the middle of the road. Gardner then tries to go around the outside in towards Water Tower. That's brave, but in the end, Neil Gardner backs off. And meanwhile, that is now going to see Plycer go all the way out wide at what is Druid's Bend. There's not much grip out there on the outside line, so Ortuga will make his way on through. Plycer still holds on. Gardner is still on the inside. And they're going to be too wide here for 21st place. And in the end, Gardner will take the place there off of Renko Plycer, but he's made my heart skip into my mouth, I can tell you that. I'm sure many of you at home as well wondering whether Neil Gardner was going to make the quarter. Mario Farag and Simon Wareham are tucked in behind as well. And Wareham right now already being the spectator in this 5-car group as he watches on here and thinks about an opportunity to get a bit more involved. We'll have to see what he can do in due course as they come down in towards turn number 2 into Denton's. And Plycer all over the back of Gardner and saying to him, right, you made the move. Can you now get a move on, please? Otherwise, I'm going to take it back off you as Gardner goes a bit sideways there out of Cascades. That is not going to help his pace whatsoever. As Ortuga carries on, he's now starting to break away from this group. Plycer on the inside here into Island Bend. He's going to go for it. I think they're going to lock horns here as they now come in towards Shell Oils Bend. Plycer's going to go around the outside. Gardner still fights out the break in. Bit of a lock up there at the front right brake. You can see Plycer squeezed him a little bit on entry just to limit the amount of space that Gardner had to play with. But in the end, it has worked out to Plycer. Brilliantly brave move. And Neil Gardner as well, being very bold on the brakes, trying to hold on to it. But Plycer had the pace. But now Gardner will try and come back at him on the run over the hilltop. But here they come then in towards the next braking zone, and this will be up to the Hislop chicane that Gardner will take the inside line, and he will take it exactly there as now Renko Plycer tucks in behind. But with all the fascination and the excitement that's happening towards the front of the field and even in the mid-pack at this point in the race, we need to take a trip back in time and understand what happened earlier on in the race, particularly to Tom Payne. Now, this was Payne headed down towards the Hislop chicane, and there was a big incident here of which we catch the tail end of it. Payne opted there to immediately go to the grass. Now, he will have picked up a major slowdown penalty for that, but he will have served it. That was all in the name of not getting caught up in the madness that unfolded there. But let's take a trip back earlier in time. This is how it all started. So Dave Dowson was involved right in the heart of this. It was 3 wide in front, a few lockups. Renko Plycer was there with Daniel Ortuga. Under braking, big mistake there from the car behind that hit Dowson on the back. I think that was David Kennedy that went into the back of him, and that might explain. Can we see a little bit closer from David Kennedy's perspective what exactly happened? Yes, we can. This was Kennedy's on board for Whiskey Windmill Bandit Brigade. In fact, I don't think Kennedy was the car that tapped on the back. No, it was the car in front of Kennedy. Couldn't quite see who that was. But Kennedy, in the end, tried to negotiate his way through. Did very well and then got tapped on the rear, but was able to carry on there. The impact not too significant. Marcel de Hint was caught up in that, and so was David Elliott. It's a bit of a nightmare moment there, but that is what happened on the opening lap. And back to your live racing we come. So now, as we make our way back to the front of the field, we've still got 12 minutes and the final lap to go. A long journey ahead, but Steff Herrmann now has moved into second place. He did that on the previous lap, coming down into the Hislop chicane. Adam Miles let it go, and Marcus Byfeldt was also trying to get through, and there is Byfeldt, taking a cheeky look up the inside there, saying to Adam Miles, don't forget about me, I'm still here. And right now, these drivers definitely try to push onwards as Van Ecklen behind is falling back a little bit, but not to fall out of the toe. I think Ecklen here is wondering what exactly is going to happen over the next few minutes. I don't think he was expecting that the leaders to be fighting this much early on. We say fighting, it is pseudo-fighting in a way. They are trying to pick a pecking order here through the slipstream, knowing they can't really break away from each other, but the fact everyone's trying to position themselves quite aggressively early on is a bit of a different temperament to what we saw at what was Donington Park, for example, a circuit where slipstream was absolutely critical. As Van Ecklen makes his way out of the final couple of corners, Jeff Randall's there with him, so our top 6 have definitely pulled away from the rest of the field. There's your 7th place driver, Jesus Cabal. He's broken away from Marcus Dorner, who had a very poor previous lap. He was 2 seconds slower than Cabal, and that's brought Chris Wayne up behind him. So Dorner right now having a bit of a frustrating race, it would seem. I wonder if he's just pushing a bit too hard and the car's biting back. And then Josephine Becker's now up into 10th place and making gradual ground as well. Christopher Geros Jr. had a bit of an off-track only moments ago. He now has Jerome Wellink right in front of him as car out the pits there. That is going to be the machine of James Molyneux. Ooh, that was very close there. Molyneux didn't really have anywhere to go with the blue flag. He did what he could into Denton's, but that's one thing as well. If you end up a lap down around here, respecting blue flags requires just as much respect from the car lapping you as it does from you as a driver. And well, I think there Molyneux did everything right. And speaking of doing things right, Geros Jr. there does exactly what he needs to do to make the move on Velink in towards Island Bend, and that's going to be as straightforward as they come in terms of a pass, albeit Velink will just tuck into the toe now and hopefully get the time back as they make the way onto Hilltop. Big slide on entry there for Simon Wareham. He's really going after David Kennedy at this point, giving it everything as we ride on board with the number 71 car. And Wareham at this point, well, the fact he's starting 23rd place, he's had a solid start. David Kennedy, however, you could say the same for. He's gained 15 places, albeit he's going to lose one of them now as Wareham will get ahead. But this is all about the draft here as we look back from the rear wing of Wareham's car. And on the inside he goes, side by side behind there. That was Renko Placer taking the place of a George Mattock, and they're both now starting to move a little bit further forward as well, so we've got to keep our eyes out for them. They have definitely all now started to pick up the pace as we have had an incident for Nathan Wade. He's been forced into the pit lane of some description, not quite sure why, but several drivers definitely have had things go quite wrong for them. Nathan Wade being one of the big victims of some incidents earlier in this race as we head into the second half. But we stay transfixed to the battle between Wareham, Kennedy, Placer and Kelly. And Brian Kelly is also trying to get a bit closer here. There is Brian Kelly in the white and dark blue machine on the inside of Mattock then, coming out of Druids Bend. And Kelly right now has started all the way up in 9th place. He had a bit of a difficult start to the race, got elbowed down in the open lap instance, did not help him whatsoever. And right now I think he's trying to see how he can recover into this one before all is said and done. But from them, back to Simon Wareham and David Kennedy. Right now, these two drivers, they are definitely pushing onwards as best they can. But Wareham and Kennedy, at this point, I think they realise that unless they can find a way to mutually work together to capture Tamara Frag, who is 1.6 seconds up the road, they may be fighting over 15th. And, well, the importance of this fight as well, of course, is that it will dictate who takes reverse grip pole position for our second race of the day. So, in a way, if you can't win the race and you can't finish on the podium, this is the one place you want to take to give yourself the best possible chance to win the second race of the day. And Wareham, Kennedy and Placer will all be looking at this right now, and they will be like a pack of wolves chasing after sheep at this point. They will all be salivating at the prospect of taking it, however only one of them can. But from them we then make our way back to Velink versus Garros Jr. These two swap places again, or do they, as it is going to be a move for the 52. Or, well, in fact, it's not in the end, and it is going to be Crystal Garros Jr. who takes the place back, but very close between these two. And right now, Velink, while the Olgit Racing Team drivers, well, he's continuing to poke and prod versus number 36 car for this 11th place, with Daniel Atuga fast approaching them, given the amount of fighting they've done this lap. So, yet, it could be that Atuga becomes best of the rest driver by the end of this one, should he be able to take 11th place. But from them, back to the front, and here's where all the excitement is now building, because that was Adam Tomkins versus Steff Herrmann. Herrmann around the outside, they're trying to hold position. Tomkins forced the inside all the way to turn number 1, but he wants to be there. And right now, Adam Tomkins very eager to prove that he is Mr. Oulton Park as he makes his way into turn 1. Herrmann is trying to prove another point, which is he wants his first win of the season. Because the championship leader right now, he can potentially win the championship by sealing only podiums. I've seen that only once in my commentary career, a driver do so. But right now, Herrmann would love a win, and that would extend his championship advantage considerably. But two way through Cascades they go. Great racing room and respect being shown between both drivers. And as they make the way now up towards Island Bend, it's going to be 3 wide because here comes Adam Miles. Looking on the inside here. Who's going to back out? Herrmann decides to back out in the middle there. It's smart move as the reverse Moses manoeuvre is pulled on him. And Tomkins and Miles are fighting once again as Jeff Randall now looks around the outside. Randall's been waiting for this. He's like a ninja in that car at the moment. He's been waiting for the opportunity to surprise everyone. And we jump aboard here with the 107 of Randall as he gets into the toe. But as he does make his way over the hill, in terms of speed he's picking up, you can see already upwards of 110 miles an hour at the top of the hill. These cars can't go much faster than that in 5th gear. That's their top gear, and onto the brakes nice and early here as he makes his way into the chicane. Practically side by side to the point of touching wheels there through the Hislop chicane, but great respect being shown. A bit of contact between the two, and in the end, Randall and also Byfeldt. Well, Byfeldt's coming on through there. Herrmann gets away with it, so does Randall, and Marcus Byfeldt right now squeezes between the two of them and says, "How do you do, my fine gentleman?" And right now Randall's going to be thinking, "I thought I'd left you behind." And Byfeldt's going to be saying, "No, you haven't, Jeff," as they make the way through Druids Bend. But Randall's not had enough of this yet as he gets a good run out of Druids, almost tapping the rear there of Byfeldt's car, absolutely on the limit of adhesion. And onto the brakes he goes away for the move. It's a big dive up the inside here, and Jeff Randall will take full place back. But look at who it's bringing into the equation. There's Van Ecklen, there's Dorner, there's Cabal, there's Wayne. All this fighting with 6 minutes left on the clock is bringing the whole top 10 back back together here, and now this race could be anybody's at this point. It's normally going to be the top fives, but Randall is having to go defensive here. Surely he's not going to start to put a cork in the bottle and force the fight to go to fourth place and let the top three run away, because if so, you can imagine that Byfeldt, Van Ecklen, Dorner, Cabal and Wayne are all going to be clamouring over him and looking for a way to try and get past before the top three run off here. But Randall, again, he knows what he's doing. He has been on this grid since the inception of the Skip Barber Community Trophy, and as it makes his way over the top of what is the bump in the road there for Island Bend, he's got a plan, but will he be able to execute it? We'll have to see. We've also got some fighting going on further down the field from your leaders. This is Pedro Maramon Cladera in 27th place. He's had a bit of a difficult start to today. However, he's chasing after Nathan Wade, who's also had his own difficulties. Both of these drivers have had to have repair work made to their cars, but right now, as that fast repair has been used up, Cladera trying to look for a way through, but the all-purple machine of Wade refusing to let him pass. Understandably here, they're fighting for track position. That's going to bring Muscle de Hint in, and de Hint, I think, on a better day would be up inside the top 10, but things have not gone right, neither in qualifying nor in the race so far, as from 27th he's fallen to 28th over the from 29th he's gained to 28th, I should say, and right now he wants 27th back at this point in the day. But will he look for the move here? Yes, he will. And in the end, well, Maron Caldera. Oh, contact! There's contact between the two of them as they come for Island Bend. And, well, that's going to be a bit of a difficult one there for De Hint to argue otherwise. Although his argument would be that Maron Caldera did touch the grass on corner entry. But I think the story between the two of them is going to end up in a position where De Hint's going to lose the place. And he may get called to the stewards room afterwards based on that camera angle. But that's one view of the story. I'm sure there's plenty more out there. And that's why we're not going to judge him. That's for the stewards to do. On to lap number 10 we come then. 4 minutes to go. There'll be this lap plus one more, most likely, unless we're able to squeeze in 2 more laps, although I doubt it. So therefore I think we will have what will be 11 laps in this race and do the same again in what will be our final race of the day, adding on 10 minutes of course. But right now Adam Tomkins ahead of Miles with Herrmann in third, and it's Randall, Byfeldt, Van Ecklen, Dorner, Cabal, Wayne, and that is your top 9 with Josephine Becker bringing up the rear in 10th place, albeit 4.5 seconds off the back of this long line of cars that right now are all trying to poke, nudge and prod for what could be a win here at Oulton Park, as that's a big move there. Around the outside of Randall goes Herrmann, and Randall having to hold off now Marcus Byfeldt, and Marcus Byfeldt is not being silly as we ride on board with the 5th place man. What he's trying to do here, the Swede, is he's trying to be really precise in his timing versus Randall. Every time Randall gets involved with Herrmann, Byfeldt is there to attack him. He's trying to make Randall focus more on what is the German driver in front of him rather than the Swede around the outside, as it's so close on entry there. And as Byfeldt makes his way through the corner, this onboard perspective really giving an idea of just how narrow these cars are, but also how little room they have to negotiate, and somehow they don't make contact again. Byfeldt throwing everything at this, but he can't find a way through at the moment as we continue to take his perspective all the way up towards Druids Bend. And behind him, Van Ecklen, Dorner, Cabal and Wayne are all being patient, but that patience next time around surely is going to run out. As we now look to the exterior view, you can see Herrmann there taking a quick look up the inside, but Byfeldt getting an absolute monster run out to Druids Bend, but it's to all no avail right now as he heads onto the brakes, and with 1 minute 50 left on the clock, our leaders come over the D-Elite. We will get one more turn of the circuit here today, ladies and gentlemen, unless they're able to squeeze it in. In fact, the white flag's not being waved. I think we're getting 2 more laps, literally by a second on the clock. We'll have to wait and see next time we come around, but I don't think this is the final lap because we had no white flag being waved there by our flag marshals, and therefore for Adam Miles, he's now got to do this 2 times more, not once more here. Such is the pace they've been running at, they've been able to add a lap in, and that's giving a surprise to so many, and hopefully nobody is underfueled on the basis there only being 11 laps in this race, because if so, we'd suddenly see a few drivers drop out this race right at the end. As Roddy van der Meiden's into the pit lane, I do believe that is for damage on the car as I look out my quality booth window, but we can't quite bring you any footage of that at the moment. We're staying transfixed here to the top 9, as again Herrmann and Randall fight each other hard, and their rivalry goes all the way back to the very first days of this series, albeit a very friendly rivalry it must be said. It would not be the same if we didn't have the 2 of them together out on the circuit. They've got a little bit of traffic in front of them. You can see Miles there trying to pick up the toe of the traffic, but Tomkins immediately slipping his way out past here. This is going to get very narrow on the back stretch, and immediately everybody responds, as that is going to be the car there of, I believe, Ronnie Schubert backing off, but 2 by 2 by 2 they come. It's not Noah's Ark, however. There's no flood or deluge here. It's all fighting in the name of victory, and right now, well, Adam Miles gets back ahead of Tomkins come the exit of his lots, but they've still got more work to do. Further back, Mario Farag battling here with Remco Preussier, and both drivers on a good recovery drive now, with David Kennedy trying to get involved. Farag goes a little bit deep there, and Kennedy he's going to be all over the back of him like a bad rash, as the Martini racing machine right now tries to hold on to 16th place, but they all want 15th or higher, understandably, because that's reverse grid pole for the next race. And right now, Red Corporation would take that accolade all the way into round number 6, and he'll be smiling, whereas others will be frowning. But will it all be smiles for him come the end of the next lap? Because back to the front of the field we go, and with 3 seconds left on the clock, there's the white flag. Confirmation, and we're getting a 12th and final lap. And here we go then, ladies and gentlemen, one last time in round number 5 of the championship. It's Miles, Tomkins, Herrmann, Randall and Byfeldt. That's your top 5, with Marcus Dorner then leading the next group from 6th place through to 9th. Josephine Becker has not been able to catch up to this, given the pace of this top 9, the fact they've all been in the tow. Becker right now in a very lonely 10th place, but this is going to be a big achievement and will guarantee that they'll start 6th in the final race of the day here. But for what will be Christopher Garris Jr., meanwhile, he's also a bit of a lonely race, 1.6 seconds ahead of Jerome and Velink, and Daniel Atuga is right behind him here. And understanding right now, I think Atuga will be looking at this and thinking, do I really need to push it? Perhaps a little bit. But meanwhile, let's come back to your leaders. And here is Randall right now in 4th place, holding off Byfeldt. Byfeldt trying to go around the outside in that Sheller's corner. That's not going to happen. He's tried it enough times that right now it's Randall who's got the script. But what can change here this time in this final chapter of this race? Well, firstly, Miles and Tomkins, they go side by side over the rides, but look at where Adam Miles puts the car this time. Dead centre of the road. That's to send a message to Herrmann. No, you don't. Too wide they go to his lots then, and it's now going to be Miles looking around the outside to the inside Nickelbrook corner. Tomkins is there with him. He's trying to survive on the outside line. Can he do it? There's contact between the two of them, and Tomkins goes off the road. He's onto the grass. It's closed. It was absolutely on the limit, and in the end, Adam Tomkins keeps out of the barrier, but he drops down to 9th place. So Adam Miles holds on to the lead now. Steff Herrmann's right there with him. However, there's only 2 more corners plus a leap to go, and as they come out to Druids Bend, Miles right now has not got it easy here. Just because there was contact between himself and Tomkins, it's not over by any means. Steff Herrmann's looking up the inside. That's more to cover off Randall and Byfeldt. Surely under braking here. Well, Herrmann's having to do all the work and keeping the cars behind him at bay because of the checker flag waves for Adam Miles. It's going to be a victory here in round number 5 of the championship, ahead of Steff Herrmann, who takes home the runner-up spot ahead of Jeff Randall. Marcus Byfeldt finishes 4th ahead of Marcus Dorner with Jesus Cabal, Martin van der Ecklen, and then Chris Wayne rounded off your top 8. It'll then be Adam Tomkins, who comes home in a consolatory 9th place, frustrated at that ending, head of Josephine Becker, who completes your top 10. And in the fight for 15th, it is going to be Remco Palacio, who brings home that 15th place, and we're at reverse grid pole position for what will be round number 6 coming up shortly. Merifrag just falling foul of taking home that 15th ahead of David Kennedy, with Simon Wareham, David Elliott and Dennis Johansson completing your top 20 as, oh goodness me, Johansson, they're getting it very wrong into turn 1. I wonder if something broke on the car as he made his way across the line. We've still got a bit more fighting to go. Who will it be out of Neptune or Payne to finish in 21st? It is going to be Frederick Neptune in the end, who just claims that by the best part of thousandths of a second, and it'll be Joshua Harley in 23rd ahead of Nathan Wade, and then we will have Pedro Maramon Cladera and then do get the upper hand of Marcel de Hint, who had to then fight with Rody van der Meyden for 26th place. Neil Garner is 11 seconds away. He'll be making his way across that timeline very shortly. And here comes Neil Garner then to take 28th, a very difficult race for him, and he'll be hoping for plenty more the second time round. And then we do have Titus de Jong, Dave Dawson, and also Peter Suapanki, who have yet to finish this race. But here come 2 of them. There's de Jong ahead of Dawson as they come across the line, and then Peter Suapanki will be your last lead lap finisher of this race to complete a 31st place finish ahead of Ronnie Schubert and Kevin Budgeon. Well, goodness me, ladies and gents, but what a first race. What a round 5 of the championship we've had. It had a little bit of everything. And the good news is we do have a couple of minutes of a breather here to dissect those race results subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries. And here they are from round number 5 of the Skip Barber Community Trophy Season 5, as brought to you on iRacing and sponsored by both Musical Money Limited and Old Kit Racing Team. Adam Miles, your winner in the end after 20 minutes of ferocious racing. However, there was contact on the final lap between himself and Adam Tomkins. In the heat of the moment, I'm sure there'll be a few words said under visors, but afterwards, I'm sure they'll look back at it and decide it was close, firm and fair racing. And on the limit there, well, it's very difficult to understand exactly what happened from the camera angles we saw, but it did look as though they're both drivers giving it everything, and some could say it may be a racing instance, whereas others would disagree. But I'll leave that up to you guys and girls to debate in the YouTube chat. So Adam Miles taking victory ahead of Steff Steff Herrmann. Herrmann, in the end, putting in a huge effort to hold on to position and rewarded with a second place finish ahead of Jeff Randall, who made his way onto the podium there for the Old Git Racing team. And I do believe for Jeff Randall, that now does qualify as his first podium of the season, given he's always finished fourth and no higher, but today he's broken that duck. Marcus Byfeldt took fourth place there with an absolutely solid drive ahead of Marcus Dorner, with a 777 driver not having any luck from Austria today in making his way onto the podium thus far, but he was ahead of Jesus Cabal, with Martin van Eckelen, Chris Wayne, Adam Tomkins and Josephine Becker then rounding off your top 10. Becker had a bit of a lonely end to the race, as did Christopher Geros Jr., who fished best the rest in length, with a Swede ahead of fellow countryman Daniel Atuga, who started off with a poor qualifying session, but made up for it in the race by moving to 12th, and therefore taking fourth place on our grid for our upcoming race. Jordan Welling, Brian Kelly and Remco Pleisser completed your top 15, with the Raging Turtle Racing Drive fighting hard for that 15th place ahead of both Mario Farag and David Kennedy. The Whiskey Windmill Bandit Brigade driver in the end settled for 17th ahead of Simon Wareham, with David Elliott and Dennis Johansson completing your top 20. Outside the top 20 in 21st, it was Frederick Neptune ahead of Tom Payne, with Joshua Harley in the end enjoyed a good run behind Payne but couldn't quite find a way ahead, but he was able to stay 5 seconds clear of Nathan Wade. Pedro Maramon Cladera finished in 25th ahead of Marcel de Hint, with Roddy van der Maiden in 27th ahead of Neil Gardner, and Titus de Jong and Dave Dowson completed your top 30, with Dowson just being passed by de Jong in the closing stages. Then, outside the top 30, in 31st place, it was George Matuk ahead of Peter Sorpanki, and then finishing a lap down both Ronnie Schubert and Kevin Budgeon. And we did have James Molyneux with the early retirement, as we did for Benjamin Harris, and no Richie Robinson, unfortunately, not able to complete a lap, much like Harris, and in the end, it was a non-finish for the pair of them. So 37 starters, a grand total of 34 finishers, of which 32 on the lead lap, ladies and gentlemen. And the good news is, very shortly, we're going to have to do it all over again here at the Oulton Park International Circuit, because round number 5, the sprint race, that was 20 minutes of absolute excitement. But now, round number 6 is a 30-minute full-on feature with some strategy thrown into it. And that can only mean one thing. It's time for even more entertaining racing here. And if you haven't had a chance to get yourself a quick drink, we definitely recommend you do so, because you won't want to be left thirsty when the racing gets underway. And as we take a quick sip of water here in the Conte booth, we do say hello there to Josephine Becker. Good evening to you, and well done, Josephine, on your 10th place finish in race number 1. We'd love to have a word with you after the race if you're up for a potential interview. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, we always do try to get interviews with a good number of our volunteer drivers after what is the racing has completed for the day. But a good race there for Josephine Becker, and indeed from several of our drivers. Well, it didn't quite go well for Titus de Jong. However, he did finish the race, which is always a bonus. That's what we definitely encourage. But goodness me, what a fight at the front of the field. And for Adam Miles right now, understandably a very intense race, but I think one that he'll be very proud of, all things considered, because he absolutely went for it lap after lap, step after step. And well, understandably, when it all came to a close, well, for Adam Miles, he was your victor, and he had that absolutely incredible fight with Adam Tomkins. And well, for the drivers, it was all right on the limit there. But that's what happens when you race these Skip Barber Formula machines, of course. And I think there are just a couple of words that are going down the pit lane between drivers, not just between our two big contenders, the Adams, if you will. And well, I won't try to insert an Adams family joke in there, of course, at any point, but definitely right now one of those situations whereby I think it's a debate among Adams, but I think it's all civil there. And that's the thing as well with the Skip Barber Community Trophy. A lot of these drivers, they have raced alongside each other for the best part of 3 to 4, if not more years. They know each other in and out, and when it goes wrong, it's not because of malice, it's because they are both absolutely giving it everything. And that's what we love about the race, and the fact there is respect on the circuit, and when the lines are crossed, everyone immediately is ready to talk about it and understand civilly what has gone exactly wrong. And that's why this series has so many drivers on it year in, year out. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it's out with the previous race and in with round number 6. So let's make our way to the grid then for what will be our 30-minute feature here at Oulton Park. So as our drivers make the way onto the grid for the second and final time today here in the northwest of England, this is how they'll line up for round 6, our 30-minute feature. It is Remco Pleisser who inherits the reverse grid pole position with a 15th place finish in race number 1, and we joined on the front row of the grid the Raging Turtle racing driver by none other than Brian Kelly. Then it'll be Drone Welling and Daniel Atuga on row at number 2, ahead of Christopher Geros Jr. and Josephine Becker. Now on row 4, it's going to be Adam Tomkins with a golden opportunity to charge his way to the front of the field early on, ahead of Chris Wayne, with the Old Git Racing Team driver being followed up then by Martin Van Eckelen and Jesus Cabal. Outside your top 10, starting in 11th place, best of the rest, is going to be none other than Marcus Dorner ahead of Marcus Byfeldt, with Jeff Randall and Steff Herrmann alongside each other in row 7, and row 8 it'll be Adam Miles and Mario Farag. On row 9, we have David Kennedy and Simon Wareham, with David Elliott and Dennis Johansson together there. But we'll have to stop running through the field, ladies and gents. So that was your top 20, because here are the lights. It's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, it's 5 once again. And out the lights go, and we are racing once more for 30 minutes of action now in round number 6. Remco Pleister gets a good start, but looking at the field, and everybody here has taken a much more trepid start compared to the first race, as Pleister, Kelly, Welling all forward the line, and everyone joins the big conga line as they make their way down towards Denton's. But look immediately for Daniel Atuga. He knows what's up as he looks up the inside into Denton's. He's going to be on the outside of Cascades on cold tyres. Daniel Atuga right now being braver than most there, as Welling immediately cuts him back off. And Geros Jr. now is going to look for the switch back onto the inside in towards Island Bend. But whether that's going to come forth or not is up to whether he's going to commit to the corner. And in the end, Geros Jr. backs off there, as her back Marcus Byfeldt, well, started 12th, exactly where he is, with Jeff Randall taking a bit of a poke on the inside. But that's going to put him firmly on the outside here. But Randall is not afraid to try and go all the way around the outside. Can he get it done? The answer is not quite, as meanwhile, Jesus Cabal has completely made a mess of Shellwell's corner. He's lost a lot of momentum, and that's going to find him losing places now one by one, as he drops 2 places already. And Jeff Randall would like to get on through if he can, but you see Marcus Dorner there gifting the slipstream back to Cabal to give the Spaniard an opportunity to defend his position and naturally act as a buffer to Dorner. Dorner playing the big games already. But looking a bit further back, Dennis Johansson here fighting hard to the grass there. That's David Kennedy, just gets it together. Dennis Johansson gives it the space to operate, but Simon Wareham now looks around the outside for Knickerbrook corner, and well, Wareham takes a bit too much grass with him there, and that is going to be an off track. However, he won't be deemed to have gained an advantage there, because he will lose momentum up the hill, as David Elliott now looks around the outside to the inside here to Druids Bend, and the Irishman right now, that's going to be bold, it's going to be brave. Can he get it done under braking? Wareham's still there, and right now the Leyland machine fighting hard with the Irishman as they make the way over the crest, and in the end it's going to be too wide all the way down towards next bend, as Frederick Neptune meanwhile tries to get involved as well, and he's trying to push him along a little bit at this point around the outside. He goes, and Neptune in the end won't be able to get it done. He runs out of road, runs into the grass, and he's going to lose all that momentum as quickly as he gained it. But after one lap, it's now Brian Kelly who's taken the lead off Remco Pleister. That happened into Lodge Bend. We just missed it off camera. There it's Jerome Welling in 3rd place ahead of Daniel Atuga, with Christopher Geros Jr. in 4th. Then we have, Geros Jr. in at 5th, I should say. There's Adam Tomkins in 6th ahead of Josephine Becker, with Marcus Dorner, then 1.4 seconds back in 8th place, and right now losing a little bit of time on the top 7. But as we can see here, everyone's fanning around behind him, with Chris Wayne and Steff Herrmann fight each other. Oh, goodness me, and that, I think, is none other than Frederick Neptune going spinning around, coming out of the Cascades, and it is indeed Neptune to the barrier there. Can he get the car back on the road? He's going to struggle. I think that front right suspension has been damaged. Yes, it has. Neptune at this point is going to be crawling along, and I don't think this is going to work out for Neptune. I think it is going to be a gradual restoration. It might be an early trip to the pit, albeit with now the slightly shorter fuel tank load. I would understand that at this point Neptune will try and survive as long as he can, but it might be a 2-stop strategy he's now on, and if so, that's going to put him well out of the hunt of some major points in this race. Bit of a lock up there from what's Daniel Atuga as Welling tries to hold around the outside of him, but it doesn't quite work in. Daniel Atuga now looking very scrappy as there's going to be contact between the two, and then Atuga collected, he comes back across the road. That was the connects Adam Tomkins. Oh no, there's even more caught up in it. Tomkins also there, Marcus Byfeldt, they've all been caught up, and for Adam Tomkins and Knickerbrook corner, it's all come apart once again. I can't quite believe it for the home hero. It is right now gone from hero to zero as quickly as that, and you couldn't have imagined a driver with less good luck than Adam Tomkins here today. And well, he was just a driver who happened to be in the right place at the wrong time, and in the end it's all fallen apart. We will get a replay of that shortly, ladies and gentlemen, but goodness me, what a moment there, and not a happy moment for what was Adam Tomkins, nor for Marcus Byfeldt or David Elliott. They all got caught up in that one, and well, a lot of drama there, but that is how Oulton Park can give, and it can take away very quickly. And in fact, as I try to continue on here, David Kennedy now, where he started to fight a little bit here with Nathan Wade. Wade in with the lighter purple machine, as car across the road, as Dennis Johansson. Johansson out of turn number 1 and gets it back together, but Dennis Johansson really slipping and sliding all over the circuit, not in a happy car right now. And I think that number 7 It definitely lacks the composure it had in the sprint race as Neil Garner takes the place off him as quick as that. George Mattock will be waiting to do so before Johansson slides loose again if he does so. But here comes Mattock then looking for the move in at the number 20, the orange machine here, which always makes me think of the Arrows liveried Formula 1 cars. But as he goes out of the corner right now, you can see Johansson fighting hard for the position, and the race driver 77 car, well, he's trying to get it back together, but Mattock wants the place off him rather soon than later. We ride aboard here as he builds up the speed. As he does so, well, which way is he going to look for Britten? He's going to look to the outside initially, but this might be a bit of fate here. This might be get Dennis Johansson to come across the road. Mattock in the end backs off there, and I think decides to go for the fuel saving instead. But one has to wonder, if Johansson doesn't get the speed together, does Mattock then have to potentially look at forcing the move, or does he have to try and undercut him even earlier? But how early can you now go? We suspect it will be 10 minutes into the race where we'll see the first mandated pit stops where they do come in for the fuel. Well, that's all to be decided because of the 47% fuel take from the 50% we saw previously. But Nathan Wade here fighting hard with David Kennedy, and in the end he does get the move on Kennedy. Going in towards Druid's bend, he will take that place back. These two definitely fighting each other quite hard, but Nathan Wade showing all that experience he's built up over the years. Here comes Kennedy back at him. Brilliant fighting. The 54 on the inside. That is going to be Kennedy fighting it with a driver who's definitely been in contention for championships on several occasions, and over the crest they come. And as they do, Nathan Wade right now not backing off. Your season 1 champion finding himself in the thick of fighting with a driver who has not really contested him so far this season, but right now is definitely putting on a show. And David Kennedy, say what you will, he's not afraid to mix it up with the big guns as Dennis Johansson again gets it wrong at turn number 1, and he's going to lose out to George Mattock there. So it was only a question of time and place for George Mattock to take that place off of Johansson, and Johansson on the limit but driving a bit too far from it. But back to the front of the field, Brian Kelly, Renko Plaisir and Marcus Dorner. That is your top 3. But Dorner right now is the anomaly in that top 3 because of the fact that whilst his 2 counterparts in the top 3 spots have broken away, meanwhile for Dorner, he has not been able to break away. It is the opposite story, whereby he has a growing pack of cars behind him. And well, Josephine Becker, Jerome Welling and Christopher Garros Jr. all building up behind him here as we look back from the rear of your 3rd place machine, and you can see that is going to be Welling on the inside there, takes the probe versus Becker. Becker defends the inside of the 2nd part of his lops. Now it'll be a switch to the outside there, and Dorner's being gifted a lot of breathing room here. That's going to open up the gap to the best part of 9/10 as they make the way up Clay Hill. And now here comes Jeff Randall battling with his teammate here, 3 wide, surely not through Clay Hill or Walter Tower. You don't go 3 wide here. They're going to try it. That's brave, that's bold, there's contact, there's a bit of a slide there. That is going to be, I believe, Garros Jr. backing off as Martin van Enkelen goes around the outside. He continues to fever 2 to 3 wide. My good lord. Well, I can tell you one thing, 2026 has definitely got off to a bang here in the Skippies, because right now they're all absolutely going for broke, and that's going to be broke there for Wes Garros Jr. in contact with Adam Miles. And well, Miles, I think, will be fuming with that one. Did Garros Jr. come across his path, or did the two of them just naturally intersect? That's the question. But the answer we do have says Miles' car got damage. Yes, it most certainly has, because it's missing the nose cone, and as a result, he makes his way into the pit lane, where it's going to be an early pit stop, as there's going to be a pit stop for George Mattock as well, who's picked up damage. And there's a lot of damaged cars here, and well, things are going from good to bad to worse for several drivers, and those who are still in this race trying to hold on, well, that's going to be the big question mark now. Who's going to be the next to fall, if anybody else? Not that we wish on anyone, but right now it's definitely been one of those races whereby I think sense of reason has gone slightly out the window, and they're trying to bring it back. But Josephine Becker tries to keep ahead of Jeff Randall at this point. Randall looking for a potential move, poking and probing left, right and centre, but right now nothing's going to come forward there as the timing tower does unglitch itself. Brian Kelly is still your leader, we can confirm that, but Becker and Randall together here fighting over 4th place. We'll get some replays of those big moments very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, because we are getting those queued up. It's definitely been a crazy opening 4 laps, and well, there's plenty to unpack with regards to everything that's happened in those laps, as that's going to be Randall passing Josephine Becker. And now we do start to head back in time, starting on lap number 2 with this for Mario Frag. So this was Frag making his way in towards turn 1 at the time, battling with the 54 there of David Kennedy. In towards the opening corner they went. Frag tried to go around the outside, the rear of the car let go and glided to the grass, was able to bring it back on. But David Kennedy definitely showed himself to be a very quick driver. We then had this for Marcel de Hint on lap number 2. This was into Island Bend. So what exactly went wrong for your number 4 driver? was the hint, made his way into left-hander. Rear of the car let go, carried all the speed, and once you're out there, where are you going to rejoin, Marcel? Oh my good lord, he joins and collects the 21 and also has a bit of rear contact, and that was also further contact. Well, that was several drivers being caught up there, and in the end, well, for Marcel de Hint, an easy mistake to make. This was the on-board looking down over the top of the car. This was from the roll bar camera, and Marcel de Hint went outright. And at this point, he's really a passenger in his own car. What could he do? Unfortunately, collecting that 21, that would have been the car there of Peter Soorpanki, and de Hint also being touched there by Roddy van der Meerden as the rest of the field then picked its way past. We then had this for David Elliott, and this was the 173 privateer making his way onwards towards the Hislop chicane. What exactly happened here? This, I think, was the aftermath of the incident we saw. No, in fact, this was a separate incident we did not see. That was contact between David Elliott and, I believe, what was Mara Farag there, with Neil Gardner squeezing his way on through eventually. So it all went a bit wrong for them. And then suddenly, oh my good lord, there was further contact, and that was the car of none other than Roddy van der Meerden making its way to him. But this was the big one that had happened on the other side of that camera. The Adam Tomkins incident here, albeit Tomkins was the victim in this one, you could say. He made his way out the corner, tried to avoid the wayward 91 that was rejoining at that time. And that was the car of none other than Daniel Atuga, and it all unfolded very quickly. In fact, we can see that incident from Atuga on an alternative camera. Here it was. So Atuga made his way out of the Hislop chicane into Knickerbrook Bend, battling side by side there with, I believe that was Welling at the time, was forced out to the grass as a result of it, came back on. Tomkins went there. It was evasive action being attempted by Byfeldt, and unfortunately for Byfeldt, very quickly found himself on the wrong path. And that's the story of what happened on lap number 2 for several drivers. Some big drama, but we're not done yet with the drama, because this happened on lap number 4 for George Mattock. And this was Mattock into Island Bend. 2 by 2 he went versus the 24 of Nathan Wade. What exactly went wrong then at Shell Oils? Took a bit of grass, looked around the outside. A small tap there, perhaps, with Nathan Wade's car. Oh, goodness me. Well, the consequences afterwards are visible to see. Tom Payne being caught up there. So was David Dowson. They all got collected there as a result of the incident that unfolded in front of them. This was the on-board from David Dowson's perspective. Very short, he's going to go from being on the tarmac to being in the stratosphere. There it was. Tom Payne got hit, and Dowson got pitched up into the sky. And that was damage to the car. So with that, we come back to your live racing, ladies and gentlemen. It's definitely been an absolutely crazy what was opening 10 minutes of this first... Well, in fact, the opening 10 minutes of this second race today, I should say, rather than the first race. We are at the end of what is our first 10 minutes of the distance. We've still got another 20 to go. And as I mince my words and try and put them all back in the right order, such is how this race has left me speechless. Well, meanwhile, Brian Kelly carrying on here as your leader ahead of Remco Palacio. We have got several pit stops unfolding for drivers who've all opted to come in, and we believe it is for strategy purposes. Jeff Randall, Jeroen Welling, and also Dennis Johansson being 3 of the big names. Nathan Wade's also come in, and Christopher Garros Jr., but they have had to repair their cars as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if we are also seeing quite a bit of repair work to cars ongoing, and drivers opted to take an early pit stop in order to be able to initiate that repair work and also take their mandatory fuel stop as well and do it all in a single go. So where's the action now on circuit, I hear you ask? Well, it's still a fight for third to some degree. We've still got Marcus Dorder fighting with Martin van Eckelen, and James Finbecker staying close behind. And then in 6th place as well, we've got Steff Herrmann bringing Jesus Cabal and Chris Wayne along for the ride here. So that's 6th through to 8th, whereas Neil Garnett and Titus de Jong, 9th and 10th, are a bit lonely by comparison. There is the split livery car of Neil Gardner, and Titus de Jong, meanwhile, has got some company of Mara Farag and Simon Wareham. Ronnie Schubert and Pedro Maramon Cladera a bit further back as well, and that's all your top 14 there all together. As a new fastest lap of the race set by Martin van Eckelen, a 47.293. He's definitely now started to set the pace alight. Here's Van Eckelen, your 4th place runner, as we see him here right now in the number 2, and that might be a sign of what he's intending here. Perhaps now, with everybody starting to pit, he's perhaps realising the fact that he needs to get a move on here if he wants to take the lead of this race as we get deeper and deeper into the Frozix. We're almost at the end of the first half, as we do see a few of our drivers drifting out wide there through at turn number 4. That's a clear Shell Oils corner right now. Van Eckelen definitely, for as much as he's drifted the car and points at a straight line, he's doing some very good car control, and it is all adding up very nicely for him, no doubt about it. But onwards he goes, and as he does so, Van Eckelen right now, one of many here who will need to make a decision at some point, which is either to come into the pits, and by doing so, will put himself now onto what will be the second stint, and therefore back into the running pack, Alternatively, what he'll need to look at doing is outstaying everybody else in the circuit. But if he does so, then he's got to start doing a lot of fuel saving, but he's also got to make sure he picks a driver who he's able to do quite a bit of fuel saving off of and not get embroiled into any fights with the drivers behind. Marcus Dorner is definitely a good candidate for somebody to work with, as we know that Dorner does race with his head on, a very smart head on his shoulders, and Josephine Becker as well. I think at this point we're glad just to be following the cars in front. But as I say that, Van Eckelen having to look around the outside here of Dorner in towards turn number 13. The runner Druids there really leaving what was Dorner behind, whereas Van Eckelen looking for an opportunity, and in the end I think Dorner's going to pull to the pit, so he decides to come in. Van Eckelen stays out and Becker's going to follow suit. That's interesting. So Dorner has reacted perhaps to us getting to the midway point of the race almost, and perhaps realising that actually now's the right time to pit given we've had so many cars pit already. The highest placed driver who has pitted is Jeff Randall as he carries on, and we can show you who's pitted and who's not on our timing tower. There you go, ladies and gentlemen, and you can see that Randall right now has made a stop, but Marcus Dorner leaves the pit lane. Are they close to each other? There's the blimp camera to show you. There's Randall around the outside. Jeff Randall is going to get ahead of Marcus Dorner, so Randall, by pitting early, has undercut Dorner. However, Velink has not been able to get ahead by comparison. That is how the strategy in the undercut has worked out. So Jeff Randall is still your leading pit stopper at the moment in terms of the fact he is leading on strategy but not on track, if that makes sense. But as he makes his way down towards Island Bend, he'll now know that he's still got another 13 cars between him and a potential victory here. But he's also now got nobody to work with. He hasn't had anybody to work with for some time, and that's going to be on his mind. He'll be wondering, have the drivers in front of him got people to work with? Are they able to match him if not surpass his pace? Well, the one thing that he won't know, that we know here in the commentary booth, we can tell you guys and girls at home, ladies and gentlemen, is that lap time-wise, Jeff Randall right now, for the clear air runners, he is the second fastest clear air runner. The only driver who is faster than him in clear air running at the moment inside this top 15 is Bryan Kelly, the race leader, who is lapping approximately half to 1/10 of a second faster than him, but it is very close and they are oscillated off each other lap after lap. So that's going to keep things quite interesting with regards to Randall, because he's got a lot of work still to do here if he wants to try and claim this win, his first win of the season. He's picked up his first podium now. He'd love to make it 2 podiums to the minimum. As we look to Bryan Kelly, your leader with Remco Pleisier, he sets a 47.568. So Pleisier now, I think, responding to perhaps the news he's had over the pit wall that Randall is the leading strategic stopper, and Pleisier, he needs to pick up a bit more pace to give himself some safety. And that's going to be on the minds of so many as Van Eckelen and Josephine Becker still work together. They're lapping in the 47.8 by comparison. And out my commentary booth window, I can see that Mario Farag has come into the pit lane now. So Farag has decided enough's enough as we head on to lap number 10. So 9 laps in the bag for Farag in the Martini racing car. What else is in store? Steff Herrmann and Jesus Cabal work together as well. And well, with the two of them working in the draft together, they are matching, if not surpassing, the pace of the clear air runners by the best part of 2 to 3 attempts. So there's still a lot of intrigue here, and whilst the race itself may have gone silent, you can definitely tell everybody now has more turned their attention to what is working together on circuit rather than thinking about trying to pass another driver. Nobody wants to cost another driver time for the thought of scuppering their own race. That's why Jesus Cabal here, as much as he had the overspeed coming over the hilltop to make the move on Herrmann, he decided not to. He would rather let the championship leader, still your championship leader after round number 5 provisionally, he would prefer the championship leader to leave the pace, help him do some fuel saving and make sure they don't lose any race time. And Chris Wayne, he's now building up into this group as well. He's getting closer and closer to it little by little. It's all started to add up. But further back, where the numbers are also adding up, is into a battle between Tom Payne and David Kennedy. David Kennedy, the aggressor here, with Joshua Harley for close company behind. And Harley now trying to get into the fight after what was a bit of a difficult race number 1 of the day. But this race number 2 has definitely been a bit more positive for him by comparison. He's not been involved in too many altercations, and instead he's opted to take a nice early pit stop and bring himself into what is the second stint strategy. But as we see Payne and Kennedy here, Kennedy on the inside, down towards Hislop's. Onto the brakes he goes, and in the end Payne's going to give him all the space and plenty of time of the day. Joshua Harley, meanwhile, very eager to try and go around the outside of the pair of them there, and well, the camera angle being a bit deceptive in terms of how much overlap he had. He had none, but the camera would suggest he had some, and Harley right now, well, he's getting close. He's definitely sending a message to Payne and Kennedy, which is if you two don't get a move on, I'm coming, and so is George Mattock behind. Mattock's only half a second off of the back of Harley, and we can show you that in the battle box in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen in terms of the relative time gaps from Kennedy all the way through to Mattock. But right now, this battle for 23rd place, it could take a much greater significance given the fact we've still got a lot of drivers yet to take a pit stop. Jeff Randall, your 13th place runner, is currently your highest place driver who has come into the pits for his mandatory pit stop. We've got a lot of drivers out there in the leading groups who right now could fall back into these groups and end up in the thick of fighting for positions well outside of the top 10. As we can see there, Tom Payne and Joshua Harley both taking advantage of certain lines at turn number 1, albeit Harley being a bit more conservative, whereas Payne took all the road, had a bit of grass with him. In the end, George Mattock there's going to get a move for free of Joshua Harley, who gets it wrong, coming down through the Cascades, keeps it together and keeps it on the road as Harley. That's not easy to do, well done to him, but Mattock will take the place there, and for Joshua Harley, he's going to be a bit frustrated that he's just gifted away that place for a small mistake. It's so easy to do, I can tell you that. Meanwhile, we come back for the fight for 17th. This is Wade ahead of Garros Jr. Jr. looking on the back here of Wade. And again, right now, the temptation is there to fight, but it's not worth it. Meanwhile, coming into the pit lane, this is a big talking point. We have Bryan Kelly coming for the lead of the race as Remco Palacios stays out. So does Martin van Eckelen, Josephine Becker, Steff Herrmann, Jesus Cabal and Chris Wayne. Neil Gardner's in. Titus de Jong. Is he coming in? Yes, he is. So, where is Jeff Randall? Here is Randall right now, making his way in towards none other than Lodge Corner, but Bryan Kelly is already leaving the pit lane, and as they make the way onwards, well, Kelly's got across the pit limiter line, and your leader is going to comfortably come out ahead of Jeff Randall. There's Randall by comparison making his way to turn 1 now. Kelly is already out the pit lane and building himself up to speed. So for Bryan Kelly, at this point in time, he's now your leading stopper, and understandably, he may not be aware of it yet, he is theoretically your leading driver in this race, unless anybody who is in front of him yet to pit could pull off a bit of a masterclass when it comes to fuel saving or just having a much shorter pit stop here. Alternatively, Kelly finds some traffic in front of him, which he will do effectively, given the fact that he does have right now, and directly in front, none other than the car of Ronnie Schubert. This could definitely be a little bit of a challenge that awaits him with the 23 driver yet to pit, and that's the thing as well for Bryan Kelly. He's got to hope, not saying that Schubert will do anything silly or not, but he's got to hope that the drivers in front who have yet to pit take the philosophy of, well, the guy behind me has just come out the pit, there's no point in fighting him because I'm only costing myself time in the race. Keep in mind, of course, there's no teams championship in this, it's purely a drivers championship, but you do have multiple teams on the grid, and sometimes they choose to work together. It's all fair, to be fair, so long as they're not doing anything dangerous on the road. But Ronnie Schubert right now will probably see Kelly come in and decide, right, you know what, the next time he makes his way for a move on me, I might just let it go and make my life a little bit easier, make his life a little bit easier, and Bryan Kelly does exactly that. Around the outside, going through Clay Hill into Water Tower, and now Ronnie Schubert will tuck in. Meanwhile, into the pits comes Remco Palacios, Martin van Eckelen, Josephine Becker and Jesus Cabal, but Herrmann and Wayne, they both stay out. So Remco Palacios is the one of the big litmus tests here for Bryan Kelly. Has Kelly done enough to leap ahead of Palacios? There is Palacios wait at the end of the pit lane. Here, meanwhile, comes Bryan Kelly as he makes way across the line. Into the pits comes Schubert and Wareham, and well, now Remco Palacios leaving the pits, but as he does so, it's a slow stop for Remco Palacios. He's still being serviced, and Bryan Kelly will retake the lead of this race, and Palacios has had an absolutely dismal pit stop. He's spent ages in the pit lane, and then he's finally left it. He's come back out in 9th place. What exactly has happened there? I think they've changed the tyres on the car as well as putting fuel in, and as a result, it's not worked out at all. Remco Palacios dropped all the way down to 9th place with an absolutely horrifying pit stop time, end to end of 40 seconds in total, whereas everyone else has been averaging between 30 to 32 seconds. So it's gone very wrong for Remco Palacios. I suspect the team there got it wrong on the strategy, and perhaps they ought to change a tyre or two on the car. Alternatively, the fuel gun wouldn't come off. But either way, right now, the Raging Turtle Racing Drive falls to 9th place with Jerome and Velling for close company. But, well, the damage was done anyway, and Bryan Kelly has regained the leader's race. And Jeff Randall right now, well, he's up into effective second of the pit stoppers, but we still got your top two to pit. Will Herrmann and Wayne coming at the end of this lap? And if so, is Randall going to jump them as well? Theoretically, based on the gaps and doing some quick mental maths, Randall is likely not to jump Herrmann based on where Herrmann was in relation to him before the pit stops unfolded and where Herrmann has been since then. Chris Wayne's going to be a bit of a different story here, and Martin van Eckelen is right behind Jeff Randall. However, the contrary is also worth a thought here, which is, has Randall actually got enough fuel to get to the end on a full push, or does he need to do some fuel saving at some point? And if so, he might have to give up a place to Van Ekelen in order to guarantee he can get to the end of the race. That's going to be where some of the intrigue sits. But into the pits has come Chris Wayne. Into the pits has come Steff Herrmann. They're both in. Where's Brian Kelly? Here he is. Herman's already leaving the pit lane. It's the shortest pit stop of everybody inside the top 10. Kelly is going to retake the lead as Herrmann makes his way down pit road. Chris Wayne with him. Jeff Randall here is coming through. This is going to be very close to second. Randall might take this. Yes, he has. Jeff Randall on strategy has moved up into second place. Martin Van Ekelen's now into third. Steff Herrmann comes out in fourth just in the nick of time, head of Josephine Becker, who has timed this very well as Becker, to be fair. The number 19 is now all over the back of Herrmann and has a chance here to attack on this lap. Keep in mind, of course, these tyres, whilst they may not run out over the course of a 30-minute race, or you can push them incredibly hard, they've still got plenty of life left. Even if you overheat them to an extent, they do lose tyre temperature in the pit lane for that very short period you are stationary. And that tyre temperature loss, that normally means you take at least half a lap, depending on the circuit, to get them back up to temperature. So Josephine Becker, if they want to make the pass, they need to do it now, and they need to channel a little bit of their car's livery. The Studio Ghibli livery there, of course, the studio behind an absolute multitude of Japanese movies that have made the way across the international spectrum. Well, there'll definitely be a bit of anime power in this car right now if Becker wants to try and make this move happen. But will it all work out or not? We'll have to wait and see, as Becker doesn't go for the move here down in towards Hislop's and instead wait and looks for an opportunity later on. But understandably, this might also be to make sure they don't lose what is none other than Martin Van Ekelen 1.4 seconds up the road, given there is a distant tow right now. Behind Marcus Dorner, Chris Wayne and Jesus Cabal together, and these three fight each other. They've pitted at very different times in this race, and this battle is going to erupt very quickly between them, as we have recently had Dennis Johansson come into the pit lane for repair work. He's had to be towed. We're going to replay that when we can, but right now let's stay focused on what's happening here with 5 minutes left on the clock, if that. Marcus Dorner battling with Wayne looking around the outside. Jesus Cabal looks to go in the middle of the two of them, then decides that's not safe, I'm not going to go for it, and I think that's a smart move there for Cabal, as Wayne now on the outside there. He's going to have all the room to work with. Dorner's not going to force him wide, and Cabal continues to fight as we ride aboard with your number 6. He looks to the inside. He's going to go for 3 wide here. This is going to be bold from Cabal, but sometimes you've got to be bold to make it work, and in the end he doesn't quite get it done. He backs off early under braking there, but he gets into the head of both Dorner and Wayne. They both there hesitating to the braking zone of turn number 1, wondering where the third car is when it was never there. That's one thing you can definitely do, but Dorner does hold on to 6th place for now, with Wayne looking to be under more threat from Cabal. They're looking to go on the counter-attack here. So here comes Jesus Cabal up the inside, but the tow will be gifted to Wayne on the run up towards Island Bend. But it's going to be Cabal who gets the inside of Chris Wayne right now, wastes no time in fighting anymore. He recognises the fact he's lost the places, and what he's going to do instead is just get back into the slipstream and then go back on the charge when he can. Will it all work out for him? That's what we'll wait to see as they make the way now on towards the next set of corners. But from them, we then come a bit further down the order to Nathan Wade, Garros Jr. and Titus de Jong. They're fighting over 11th place, the trio here, with Wade the lead car and Adam Miles and Neil Gardner. They're not too far behind. Keep in mind, of course, that Miles is trying to recover his way into the top 10 or as high as possible towards it, given what happened earlier on in the race. But Nathan Wade, well, he's got the two behind him fighting each other as Garros Jr. defending to the inside there through his lops, and as a result De Jong falls backwards, and it's going to be Miles, Gardner, Suapanki. They're all brought now into this group. The fighting has cost them the time, and it's given them the slipstream as a result. But from further back, we see Mara Frag here, also behind Kevin Budgeon, with Wareham and Schubert for close company. Goodness me, there's fighting everywhere you go towards the end of this race. It goes to show you the fact that whilst we have drivers of all different pace levels here with such a brilliant field of drivers, there's going to be an opportunity to find someone who can closely compete with regardless of your skill level. And well, it's been brought very much live right now as Mara Frag, well, for all his push and shove, he can't seem to find his way past Kevin Budgeon, albeit they have got at least 2 more laps to go here. And right now, the number 30 driver, I think, will be fancying his chances sooner rather than later as he goes for it there, then backs out. But I think in a bit of hesitation, it doesn't quite work out. Meanwhile, Chris Wayne is into the pit lane. That is for a quick splash and dash of fuel. So they got it wrong there for Old Git Racing Team in terms of the fuel to put in the car for the 69. Has anybody else got it wrong with the fuel load? That's a big question. Brian Kelly surely is not here, leading by a 4-second margin. He can afford to back off and lose a second lap and be safe now to the end. Jeff Randall, meanwhile, has got Van Ekelen right behind him, and they're both still at threat from Steff Herrmann, who is bringing Josephine Becker along. They're 4th and 5th, but they are 1.7 seconds off of the fight for second place. And if that tow comes down to 1 second, it starts to become very strong, and that's where you'll suddenly see these two cars be brought into the podium fight. And that's what I think Becker and Herrmann are both hoping for right now. They can just work together, and they can inch themselves just that little bit closer by the time they get to the final lap. Behind Marcus Dorder fighting with Jesus Cabal. Cabal went to the outside there to signal the fact he didn't want to fight it this time, and it's definitely worked out. And now with Wayne falling out of this battle with the short pit stop, and therefore needing to go for another pit stop for extra fuel, it means they can focus more on each other as we then come back to the fight for 10th place with Remco Pleisser going through the foreground in camera shot. He's trying to run away in 9th, but you can see here right now Gerris Jr. is really Wade, Miles, De Jong, Gardner and Suapanki all with him, and nobody wants to be near this group right now because of the fact it's a huge group of cars, and we're going to have a repeat of race number 1 here today potentially. We have such a long line of cars that it only takes one person to get it wrong. But meanwhile, one driver is getting it absolutely right. He sets a personal best on the penultimate lap. It's Brian Kelly who goes on to lead the final lap of the race here today at Oulton Park by 4.5 seconds ahead of Jeff Randall, who's got Martin Van Eckelen for close company. And we still have Steff Herrmann and Josephine Becker just within arm's reach, who will be on the bottom 2 steps of the podium. Could Brian Kelly bring home his first win of the season? Well, we've got 1 lap to find out the answers to that and plenty more. As Jesus Cabal on the inside there at Denton's, and Marcus Dorner gives them the space to live for now, but Cabal goes very deep through Cascade. But in turn, Dorner there on a very tight line all the way through the corner. I think anticipating the 2 wide, it means now he'll only get the run here as they make the way in towards Island Bend, and it's going to be a smooth move there for Marcus Dorner. Gets it done, a big slide on the rear end though as he makes his way through the corner, but Dorner's going to have that spot ahead of Jesus Cabal, and it's going to work out for the time being. There's a small tap to the rear, but nothing too major. Cabal right now getting aggressive, they all are, as Adam Miles meanwhile, he just picked his way on past Gerris Jr. and also Titus De Jong, and in fact I think there's been a little bit of a mix-up between all these drivers in terms of fighting. I'll tell you one thing, it is going to be a very progressive race there from none other than Adam Miles. Meanwhile, Dorner versus Cabal, they come down in towards his lots now, and Dorner back on the inside of Cabal, takes the place back again after the drag race all the way over the hilltop, and they continue to push each other every step of the way as Gardner and Wade, they fight each other here in towards his lots, and it's going to be Neil Gardner who just gets ahead there, coming in towards the Nickelbrook Bend. But from them, we must make our way all the way back to the leader, because for Brian Kelly, how he has turned things around over a 2-week period. At Donington Park, he was incredibly quick, and on strategy, he got it right in the feature for a podium. But here at Oulton Park on the strategy, he's absolutely nailed it spot on, and Brian Kelly takes his first win of the season in round number 6 of the championship ahead of Jeff Randall, who takes his highest finish in a second place finish on the podium, back-to-back podiums day ahead of Martin Van Eckelen. Josephine Becker finishes ahead of Steff Herrmann in a drag race to the line, and it'll be Jesus Cabal in 6th place. Marcus Dorner has dropped to 7th. He's run out of fuel at the line, so I think that's how Cabal's come through. Jerome and Welling and Miles and Remco Pleisser complete your top 10, with Titus Duke in 11th place ahead of Neil Gardner, and it'll be Christopher Gerris Jr. ahead of Peter Suapanki, with Nathan Wade in the hand to settle for quite a difficult 15th place ahead of Mario Farag, who held off the intentions of Simon Wareham to the finish line, ahead of Roddy Schubert, Chris Wayne and Pedro Maramon Cladera, who round off your top 20, as we can see they're making his way along. And it is Tom Payne in 21st ahead of Joshua Harley, with Frederick Neptune coming across the line shortly for what will be a 23rd place finish. He's definitely had an exciting pair of races today. George Mattock, he's crawling along there. I don't think he's got enough fuel potentially. I think he's having to conserve it all the way to line. That's going to give David Elliott another place, and that's sad there for George Mattock, because that has not worked out at all. And after what was a very exciting race number 1 for him at Oulton Park, race number 2 has definitely been one of those races where it's just not clicked together whatsoever. But as Elliott comes across the line, then 24th place is what he achieves in round number 6. And then we do have George Mattock still trying to get through. The problem is, will he be able to build up enough momentum here as he makes his way from what is Lodge Bend all the way to the Deer Leap? Can he get up the hill? Here we go. Fingers crossed for him, because it is quite a steep gradient there to the best part of 13%, I do believe. And he just about gets there. Is he going to get a push on Budgeon? Yes, he is. Kevin Budgeon on his return is going to give a little bit of a push along here. How about this, ladies and gents? So that's brilliant spirit between the two drivers. Kevin Budgeon immediately saying, you know what, I don't want the spot. I want to see you finish. They're going to get across the line together. And in the end, it's going to be a bit of extra contact, but they make it work, even if Kevin Budgeon's car's up on only 3 wheels. But Matic finishes 25th ahead of Kevin Budgeon. That was lovely to see, and that will be how they all finish on the lead lap. But with that, as we take a look to the scenic view, here are the results from round number 6 of the championship, subject to any stewards' inquiries. And as we can see then, an absolutely brilliant 30-minute feature race, and Bryan Kelly getting the job done there on strategy and pace to make sure he brings home his first win of the season, ahead of 2-time podium finisher now, back-to-back podiums today for Jeff Randall for the Old Git Racing team, who absolutely delivered when he needed to on strategy and leapfrogged his way from what was a potential fight for a top 5 into a fight for the podium. Right behind him by 3/10 was Martin van Eckelen, but van Eckelen in the end could not find a way through and settled for the 3rd place spot, and the Dutchman was then followed up by his continental counterparts from Germany of none other than Josephine Becker and Steff Herrmann. The two then fought hard, with Becker just getting ahead of Herrmann at the finish line, and then Jesus Cabal took 6th place ahead of Marcus Dorner in their brilliant battle, with Jeroen Velink in the end having to settle for 8th ahead of Adam Miles, and Remco Pleister completed your top 10. The Raging Turtle racer driver was ahead of his teammate Titus de Jong, who came on strong towards the end of the race, and Neil Garner did the same, who finished 12th. Christopher Garros Jr. took 13th ahead of Peter Suapanki, and Nathan Wade round off your top 15 in a challenging race of the Britten. Mara Frag was 16th ahead of Simon Wareham, with their battle running to the finish line, and then it was a further 2 seconds to Ronnie Schubert, with Chris Wayne underfueling in his pit stop, had to come in again for a splash and dash, and what was potentially a top 10 finish was relegated to a 19th place spot. The Old Git Racing team drive followed up by then none other than Pedro Maron Cladera. That was your top 20, and outside the top 20 we then had Tom Payne ahead of Joshua Harley, with Frederick Neptune in 23rd ahead of David Elliott, and George Mattock round off the top 25, pushed across the finish line by the man who finished 26th. It was none other than Kevin Budgeon. Those were your lead lap finishers, and then we did have none other than Marcel de Hint in 27th, a lap down. It was 4 laps down for Dennis Johansson as classified, and 5 laps down for David Kennedy for Whiskey Windmill Bandit Brigade. Sadly, it was a non-finishers classified for your 30th place driver there of Rodi van der Meerden, and the same could be said, unfortunately, as well for Daniel Atuga, Dave Dowson, Marcus Byfeldt, Adam Tomkins, who's had a dismal day at Oulton Park, and I do feel very sorry for him, I must admit. It is a home circuit, but it has been a complete span in the works for his championship, and we also did have the non-starters of James Molyneux, Benjamin Harris, and Noel Ritchie Robinson. With that, ladies and gentlemen, that brings round number 6 and all of our racing at Oulton Park here today for Season 5 of the Skip Barber Community Trophy to a close. What a brilliant pair of races. And with that, we're going to take a brief breather because this broadcast is not quite over yet, and we will be back in approximately 5 minutes' time for post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. Don't go anywhere. You want to miss them. We will see you very shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews, and we're going to be kicking off with none other than Brian Kelly, who joins me now in the interview room. Good evening to you, Brian, and what a day from yourself. The sprint race might not have been too much of a race to talk about, but the feature race, meanwhile, you pulled off another blinder like at Donington Park. You must be pleased with your results today.
Yeah, last week I said I like this track, and I really do. There's an unfortunate mishap in the heat race where I checked up for some people going too wide ahead of me, and I think somebody behind me tried avoiding. So we both decided to evade to the same spot, and unfortunately I got a meatball there. But yeah, that set me up perfectly for the feature, and I knew I had some pace. Unfortunately, qualifying I couldn't find a clear bit of track, and ended up not doing very well on the qualifying. But yeah, the feature race couldn't have asked for anything better.
Well, the feature race you can ask for anything better, like you say, but qualifying didn't quite work out. What do you think was perhaps the challenge in qualifying? Did you find perhaps the open 10-minute session with so many cars out of the circuit perhaps proved to be more difficult than expected?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what other drivers were doing, if people were trying to pair up for draft. But yeah, I kind of just warmed up my tires, tried to get a little clear bit of track. I happened to do that, and I think on my third lap, I just made a mistake, made an off track, and at that point it was game over for me. So it was just a mistake on my end. I think if we were to run that again, I probably could have done better. But yeah, just a little mistake on me going off track.
Well, that's absolutely fair, and it's always good to hear that you're already thinking about how you can do things better for the next time. But talking about the sprint race then, it went wrong at one point, and the racing was so close. I mean, for the opening, let's say the opening 10 minutes of racing before it did go wrong for yourself, it was incredible. Nose-to-tail cars, left, right, and centre. I mean, I get the feeling you probably didn't know which way to look. Left, right, forward, or behind, there's a Skippy everywhere.
Yeah, this is a tough track to overtake, so people just need to make things happen. So I did get pretty nervous in the pack. I wasn't sure whether to defend or where to go for an overtake. So yeah, I think I went for one overtake on Jesus. That was probably a mistake, and I think that caused us to lose the draft. If we had kept the draft, I think the race might have gone a little differently. Yeah, I think some of the calculus of whether people were going to decide to go for an overtake or not might have changed. So, yeah, I need, like I said last time, trying to work on overtakes, deciding when to go for them, and yeah, that heat race, it was a mistake. So,
well, a mistake may have been made, but still, going from the sprint race into the feature, we saw you take what would be the second place spot on the grid. You wasted no time in jumping into the lead at the very start. Was that always the plan?
I had saw the line. I can't remember who was next to me, but I recognized their livery. So I had watched their line, and I knew I was faster kind of on that uphill section right before the final straightaway. So that I kind of decided from the beginning just to take it easy, try not to spin, and then I knew I was a little quicker there, so that was kind of my opportunity, and it worked out kind of how I was hoping. So. From there, it was just me trying to put in as fast a laps as possible and break the draft.
Well, you kept putting in those laps, no doubt about it. And by the time we started to see the pit stops unfold, you did have a gap of around 3.5 seconds. At what point, however, and this is perhaps more for our viewers at home, because we know fuel saving is a big part of the feature race as much as it is about being outright quick, but you never seemed to look like you were slowing down. If anything, you were just getting faster and faster. Or was there some fuel saving you were squeezing in there?
No, there's no fuel saving I was doing. I was experimenting with it in the practice session, and I wasn't consistent enough with fuel saving where I thought it was gonna make sense if I was alone to fuel save. If I ended up behind people, I thought it might be advantageous, but yeah, when I was out front, I just wanted to get as far away as possible and hopefully hedge off against anybody that was able to fuel save like they did last week.
Well, that's absolutely fair. And I mean, what a way to do it in the end. When you did come into the pits, a 11-second long stop in the pit stop for the fuel, and then back out there, leading the race once again. I mean, it must have been music to your ears, thinking, right, you've now got a final 10 minutes or so to go. Nobody's in front of you. It's just you, the track, and a win awaiting you.
Yeah, definitely. After that stop, after all the stops happened, and I saw that it was a clear track ahead of me, I looked down and I saw I didn't have any incidents. So I was just thinking, okay, just keep it clean as possible. Try to score some of those bonus points for having a clean race.
Oh, indeed. And in we're very pleased to see you're able to achieve with 0 instant points in that race. A great way to cap off our trip around the United Kingdom. But looking ahead now, with a first win in the bag and a couple of podiums as well. Round 7 and 8 next week, we head to Norway for the Rudskogen Motor Centre circuit. What are your thoughts on it?
I'm going to need to spend some time practicing that one. I don't remember being particularly fast there. So I definitely need to put in some practice laps. And then assuming I do better in the heat race next time, it'll be interesting seeing how sort of battling through the pack goes. I think that's, yeah, still probably one of the things I'm working on the most is just choosing when to overtake properly and setting those up better. So assuming I do better in the heat race and start sort of, further towards the back, that's going to be a challenge for me.
I see. Well, it's great that you're aware of it, and well, with some practice at Rudskogen, we never know what you might be able to achieve there. Hopefully we'll see you back on the podium, if not hunting more wins sooner rather than later. But just before I do let you go, Brian, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast today?
Yeah, thank you for doing the broadcast. I know that's a ton of fun for family and friends to watch, and I know all the drivers love seeing what happened on track outside of what was, in their field of view. So I really appreciate that broadcast, and thank you to Jeff and everybody else that is administering the league. It's a ton of fun doing these league races. It's some of the best racing on iRacing, so I'm happy that I'm a part of it.
Oh, fantastic. And it's my pleasure, Brian. And it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room this evening. Congratulations once again on converting what was a difficult sprint into a perfect win in the feature. We look forward to plenty more from yourself at Rudskogen in a week's time. But until then, have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you, Paul.
So those are the words of Brian Kelly, ladies and gentlemen, the privateer who absolutely delivered today, but openly admitting qualifying it went astray, and in the end, when he wanted to try and get onto a better lap, it went off track and it never quite worked out. In the sprint race as well, found himself right in the thick of things and knowing when to go for moves, and in the end, with Oulton Park being such a tricky circuit to overtake at effectively, knowing he didn't want to lose the draft, but when he did make the move on one of his rivals, he saw the draft was going away. But then the race would go away entirely when there was an instant, and he absolutely zigged when he should have zagged, in the infamous words of Cletus McFarlane, in the fact that he went in the same direction as another driver taking a void in action, and they made blows. It's always the irony, but it happens. But he turned a positive spin on it and decided that 14th place in the sprint that guaranteed himself a front row start for the feature, and that's where he was able to leap his way into lead early on and then never look back. And on strategy, it was flat out every step of the way, minus when he had to come into the pits to put more fuel into the car to go flat out. But for Brian Kelly, what a perfect way to wrap up his time in the UK for this series. And onwards to Rudskogen he goes, but he knows there's more work to be done. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got another interview to come, and we are only moments away from having a word with our second interviewee. But who's it going to be? We'll find out shortly. And so our second interview, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be none other than Old Git Racing Team's Jeff Randall, who now joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Jeff, and well, how about that? Coming into this round, you had no podium so far, but you come close on multiple occasions, and then you make it a perfect pair of podiums. I mean, the grin on your face must be growing by the lap.
Yeah, it was a great night. It was excellent. Race one, it was just a cracking scrap between the top, I don't know, it must have been 8, 9, 10 cars, all finishing so close to each other. I mean, just looking at the results here, top 8 finished within 1.5 seconds. So close and so good. Gutted for Adam Tomkins that he spun out and missed out on the podium because he was at the front and deserved it. It's his home track and he loves it. Yeah, I'll take the podium on that. It was a nice last corner and scrap to the line with Marcus Byfeldt. Really, really good fun. Loved every second of that.
100%. I mean, you were in the thick of it in both races, albeit perhaps the complexion of the feature was a bit different. We'll come on to that shortly. Let's just rewind it back to the qualifying session. 10 minutes, open qualifying. 37 skippies. I mean, it's a huge field, which is absolutely beautiful, but 2.7 mile long Oulton Park, we do the mathematics. That's not much room for a skippy out there. How did you find it?
Yeah, I actually found it okay. I was behind Deepest and I remember someone else. And I thought, okay, I'm closing the gap a bit quickly here. So I dropped back and then got behind Dennis. And Adam was involved. And yeah, that helped. So that kind of towed me round to a quicker time. The funny thing is that I was planning on getting a quick final lap and sort of spun going round turn 6 or 7, I think, and thought, okay, well that's that. But then, fortunately, the clock came to an end and everyone's times were done. So I didn't know actually that it was going to be 10 minutes and that's it. I thought everyone would be able to complete the lap they were doing, but fortunately for me, they couldn't. So that wasn't too bad. So yeah, P7, I think it was P6, P7. I was happy with that.
Oh, indeed. And I mean, if you were surprised at us cutting at the 10-minute mark, so were we here in the commentary booth. You weren't alone in that one. It's always good to keep things fresh and surprising, however. And then the sprint race. You talked about it moments ago. 7th place start, 3rd place finish. An absolutely brilliant race. And a top 9 that was never going to separate by more than 5 seconds end to end. I mean, just what's it like running in that pack? How do you gauge when a go forward versus back? Because we saw so much fighting between yourself and, say, I believe it was Marcus Byfeldt at certain points. The two of you were more side by side than you were in a line over the whole distance.
Yeah, it's cracking racing. It really is. Marcus is a really clean racer. He's sensible. He knows when a good place to overtake is and when it isn't. So we were only trying to overtake when the two Adams and Steff were getting involved in tussles at the front. So if they were side by side, then we were side by side. If they were in a line, then we were in a line. I think it pretty much worked like that. That we thought, okay, well, if we start getting involved in scraps when they're all in a line, then we're just losing. So there was no point in doing that.
Oh, 100%. I mean, perfectly played, no doubt about it. And then, as you alluded to, when it did go a bit wrong between the two Adams, it was a challenging moment, but everyone had to very quickly scramble out the way. Where did you find yourself in that? Because Knickerbrook Corner doesn't offer many lines out of it.
No, it doesn't. When the two, and unfortunately, Adam Tomkins, who came off worst, he just disappeared off to the right. So there was no worries there. I just got out to the left and made sure I stayed left. So that was always safe. There was a bit more of a scary one in the second race, but we'll probably come on to that in a sec.
Oh, indeed. And, well, a 3rd place finish in the sprint. I mean, we saw the close fight between yourself and what was none other, as I just double-check my notes in regards to the end of the race. Yourself and Marcus Byfeldt were right at the finish, and also you breathing down Steff Hermann's neck. But we had to talk a bit about the feature. Starting in none other than 13th place, was there a particular strategy? Because we saw you come in one of the earliest of everybody.
Yeah, I didn't want to get involved in any sort of scrapping. I just wanted to get out and nail sort of quali lap after quali lap, essentially. And yeah, I think that sort of worked for me today. I know that Marcus Dorner was in front of me when I went into the pits. He was in front of me by a good 2 or 3 seconds. So when I came out in front of Marcus, I was really chuffed with that. Or when Marcus pitted, rather, he came out behind me about 1.5 seconds behind. And then I couldn't believe it when Martin Van Eckelen came out right behind as well. I was expecting a really, really close scrap right the way to the end then, but he seemed happy to just kind of sit. I think maybe he had a few fuel worries. But we had a nice clean drive all the way to the end. Hoped to be able to catch Bryan, but Bryan was too quick tonight. He was just, on it from start to finish.
Oh, 100%. I mean, Bryan might have been a slightly different postcode when it came to the pace today, but you definitely showed that the undercut strategy can work, and it was a brilliant end to our time in the UK with back-to-back podiums to yourself. I guess the question now is, when we make our way to Rudskogen in a week's time, does it mean we can expect your first win there?
I'd like one. I can't say that I'm going to get one. I do like it at Rudskogen. It suits my driving style. I But yeah, to be honest, it really is a toss of a coin. There's so many cracking drivers here. If you get a win, it's a real bonus. To end up with 2 podiums tonight, I'm made up. I can't expect to get a win, but I'd like to be in the mix. As long as I'm in the mix, I'm happy and can go for sort of consistency throughout the season.
Oh, I'm loving the spirit. Consistency over big scores, and I think that will definitely bode well as the season goes on. Jeff, as I do get ready to let you go and let you enjoy it the rest of your evening, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast?
Yeah, of course. Thank you always to yourself, Paul, for doing a cracking job. It's such a good watch. Really appreciate all the work you put in behind the scenes as well. Obviously, to all the drivers for doing what they do and turning up in droves here. It was great to see. And of course, to my fabulous wife who puts up with me for doing all of this. She's the best. So, yeah, thank you to everyone.
Well, we do have to say a huge thank you to you, Jeff, not just for joining me for an interview, but helping run things behind the scenes and being one of the beating hearts of this series. Congratulations once again on a brilliant set of results for your first back-to-back set of podiums this season. We look forward to seeing plenty more at Ridskogen, but until then, my friend, have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Great stuff. Thanks, Paul.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from the old Git Racing team's Jeff Randall, and you can hear it in his voice, much like Brian Kelly when we talked about the feature race of him. For Jeff today, everything has just clicked together. Qualifying, he was happy with that 7th place. He felt as though, despite the session being very crowded, he was able to get a lap together that he was happy with, and it translated into an absolutely bombastic sprint race where the top 9 never really let each other go until it all went wrong towards the end between Adam Tomkins and Adam Miles, and that suddenly opened up the door for many an opportunity further down the field. However, he was happy with the 3rd place in the sprint and now knew what he had to do in the feature, which was don't get in the fight. And that's why he pitted as quickly as he could in order to undercut the whole field. And when doing so, it worked out a treat, leaping him from effective what was in a battle effectively for around 5th to 6th into a fight for 2nd with Martin Van Eckelen, who could never quite find a way past. So with that, off to Ridskogen Motor Centre, Jeff Randall goes on a high, and pride in consistency over big scores. Can we expect another double podium for him in Norway? Well, only time will tell. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got one more interview to come, and we'll be back in approximately 30 seconds' time for our final interview of the night. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we are back then for our final interview of this evening, and it is none other than Nathan Wade, who now joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Nathan, and what a challenging day it's been for yourself today. It looked like nothing quite clicked at Oulton Park. Best result in the end, a 15th in the feature. Do you mind breaking this down for us?
Yeah, hi Paul. It's been an interesting evening. I didn't get much practice in at all. I literally jumped in sort of 7 o'clock just to get that 45 minutes in. It's quite a challenging track. I haven't driven it for a good 4 or 5 years. But it's great fun to be back in the Skippy in general. I love this league. I love this car. And yeah, tonight's just been a bit of a challenging one. I had a pretty poor qualifying. In all fairness, I just went out and I was just on my own from, I think, after the first lap. So I didn't get any toes or anything. I think I got like one decent lap, but it was a good second and a half off the pace. So I was right at the back of the field, sort of eyeing up a really good fun sprint race to try and get back into it. And it was actually a really good sprint race up until about a lap. I think it was lap 3 or 4. When I came, George and I think it was Peter had a collision into turn 1. I had nowhere to go. Had Kevin Budging come up behind me and completely ruined the suspension of my car. So I had to sort of crab my way back to the pits, and then it was just a case of where can I get to after that additional pit stop in the first race. And the second race, it was also a good one. Couple of incidents. I do apologise to David Kennedy in the pits for the pit lane incident. I was so in the zone in the pits that I'm used to ghosting people. And so as he went to pull into his his pit entry, which was like the first one. I just clipped him, and I think I pushed him past his pit entry, and then I obviously lost a bit of time there as well. But I probably ruined his race as well, so I do apologise about that. But yeah, other than that, it was good fun trying to. I pitted nice and early because I was so far back. Made my way back up the field, and then towards the end, I was slightly underfueled in the car, so I had to do a bit of fuel saving, and then as we came out the last corner, that was when the car started coughing, and I lost a couple of positions there. I think I could have got possibly a P11, but I'll take the P15.
Oh, goodness me. I mean, on a return to the race in the Skippies, it's definitely, if I could summarise it in what would be 3 words, it would be crash, bang, wallop in terms of how you've come back into it. But
Yeah,
still,
definitely.
you're sounding happy. It must mean that your love for Skippies has, like you say, never gone away. But then I've got to ask, what have been the main things you've had to sort of relearn or get to grips with to get yourself back up to pace?
It's just rustiness, really. Like, I'm extremely rusty. The pace is definitely still there. Like, in practice, you get sort of those 1 or 2 laps where you're like, okay, now that was good lap, it was good pace. You're a couple tenths off sort of the top guys, but it's just the consistency. Like, it's just making sure you're hooking up the lap every single lap. And at the minute, because I just haven't driven it, I haven't battled with people for years. You're just not used to it, and so I can only apologise for the small incidents I'm having on track. I'm trying my best to stay out of it. But yeah, that's the number one thing that's challenging. It's just the lack of consistency at the moment, and just getting back to grips with the car.
Well, fair play. Well, the consistency will come with time. There's no doubt about it. And, well, at the same time, we did get to see you right in the thick of many a battle in both races. And just from your perspective, because you are one of our previous champions, of course, all the way back in Season 1, at a narrow circuit like Oulton Park, what's the thing you have to be mindful of most? Is it the width of the road or the width of the car?
A bit of both, especially with the chicane at the bottom. There's a couple times where you get quite close to the apex barriers, so you just got to make sure you don't wipe off like one side of your car entirely. And then yeah, it is a very narrow track. So there were a couple times there, like I think it was in the feature race, where you're going 3 wide. And because I'm just not used to it, and I'm completely sort of out the loop with it at the minute, it's a bit sketchy being in the middle, because I feel like you do get sandwiched quite an awful lot. And I did have a situation at the turn 4 hairpin with George and Dennis, because Dennis came down the inside, and I was not ready for it, and so I just slightly clipped George, which sent him off a little bit. But yeah, it's good fun though. I'm always going to be smiling in this car, because it's always a good laugh and great to be back in the Skiffy.
Oh, fantastic. Well, if you've enjoyed it today, then surely when next weekend comes around and we head to Rudskogen, the only way is up at this point. Will you set yourself any goals in Norway?
With the exception of learn the track, I've never driven it, so I'm sure it'll be a good fun track to learn. Surely I can only go better than this week. The last 2 weeks have been a bit better, so I plan on hopefully getting 2 top 10s next week. That's the plan. As long as I can get some practice in. Looking forward to it.
Oh, brilliant. Well, we look forward to seeing you take on the Rudskogen circuit and go for that goal of 2 top 10s. Just before we do let you go, Nathan, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast?
Just yourself for this, the stream. You do a brilliant job every week. It's good fun to watch back on the Monday mornings. And then Jeff running the league, and just everyone else for the good fair racing, and obviously David. I do apologise for that incident in the pits. It won't happen again, I can assure you.
Oh, well, Nathan, we appreciate your time at the interview. It's been great to hear from you and catch up with you, and we look forward to plenty more from yourself in a week's time at Rudskogen. But until then, have a great rest of your evening, and we'll see you in the next 2 rounds.
You too. Cheers, Paul.
So hearing there, ladies and gentlemen, from Nathan Wade, who absolutely enjoyed himself out there today. There's no doubt about it in the fact you can hear it in his voice. It's infectious, so much so, even though I'm quite tired from just doing this broadcast, understandably, it's been a long evening of racing. I've got the biggest grin on my face right now just hearing from Nathan Wade and the fact that, yes, he's been away from the skippy for some time, but he's loving it out there, getting stuck in with the fighting. And right now, that energy is making me wonder, can we go racing again right now, please? Because it's been so good. But unfortunately, we do have to wait a week until Rudskogen. But a bit more down to earth, of course, respecting the fact that he's had to really relearn or get rid of the rust on himself with regards to his driving ability, and that's coming from a previous champion of this series. That goes to show you the fact that these cars really do need you to be absolutely on the limit when it comes to knowing exactly what you can and can't do. However, he set himself some new targets as a Rudskogen. Back-to-back top 10s is what he's looking for in the races there. So already he's on the march to move forward. And you could say it was the same tonight until it went wrong in the sprint. And that meant in the end, when we went to the feature, it was all about trying to do his best to make amends. But unfortunately, that slight incident between himself and David Kennedy, which we didn't quite pick up on the broadcast, only meant that his progress was stumped. So 15th place was the best he could do, also with the lack of fuel in the car towards the end. But if he gets all the mistakes out of the way here at Oulton Park, then surely he'll be going for gold very soon as the season moves on, and no longer will he be there having difficulty in the lock. Well, we'll have to see, because for Nathan Wade, the only way is up. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that brings to a close all of our interviews for today. And a huge thank you to all of our drivers there. And I do apologise for the fact we had 3 drivers at interview. And there we go. And as we can see, in the end, Bryan Kelly was the first of our interviewees. Well done to him on that win in the feature race. An absolutely brilliant effort from him from lights out to checker flag, but also in the sprint race, to be fair, in the fact being able to pick up the pieces and make sure he set himself up for success in the subsequent feature. We also had a chat with Jeff Randall, the second interviewee there, who picked up double podiums today, his first 2 podiums of the season, and a huge points injection and an absolutely gleeful end to his first 6 rounds of the championship. And then we just heard from Nathan Wade, who's definitely enjoyed himself as well out there, even if things have proven a bit challenging in some respects. Well, for Wade, it was all about getting in and having fun today, and that's exactly what he has done. And right now, you can imagine that he'll be heading into the next round, looking for what will be an even bigger score and an opportunity to make sure that rust is very, very well and truly gone from his racing hands. So huge thank you to all 3 of our drivers for their time in the interview room this evening, and also thank you to them for joining me. Well, thank you to them for joining me in the interview room, and also well done to them on their performances. But with that, it's now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and perhaps you're sat there wanting to know more about the Skip Barber Community Trophy, well, for all that and more, if you want to get on the grid or just get to know the guys and girls behind the scenes that make the magic happen on a weekly basis, we definitely recommend you join the official Discord, invite link available on screen. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our sponsors for this series, first and foremost being Musical Money, and to tell you a little bit more about Musical Money. Musical Money is the quick, easy and safe way to turn your unwanted musical equipment into money. No matter what your equipment may be, if you want to sell it, Musical Money is there to buy it, thereby taking the hassle out of selling your unwanted musical equipment. And with their groundbreaking website, as shown on screen, selling your musical equipment could not be easier for a website which has put the user experience at the core of its design. So why not check out www.musical-money.co.uk today to find out more. Also, we'd like to say a big thank you at this point to none other than the Old Git Racing Team. Established in 2024, Old Git Racing Team aims to prove that age is just a number in the world of racing. Headed by Jeff Randall, the team races in multiple disciplines but is especially dedicated to the Skip Barber Formula 2000 machine. Regardless of the car, they aim to keep their racing fair and close, whilst also respecting the fact that mistakes can happen to even the very best. And if you'd like to know more about the team, then we definitely recommend that you head to their Twitch channel shown on screen, and that's at www.twitch.tv/oldgitracer, where you can check out their racing, including their onboard perspectives from the Skip Barber Community Trophy. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, as we say, a huge thank you to our sponsors. It's now time to look ahead to our next pair of rounds. And in a week's time, the story continues as we make our way onto the European main continent, and it is to Norway for the Rudskogen Motor Centre. At the highly technical circuit, it's going to feel similar but different to Oulton Park, as there'll be plenty of elevation changes, but also there'll be plenty of sweeping bends for our drivers to deal with, along with some rather significant straights. And then round 7 and 8, who on Sunday the 11th of January January 2026 will be able to keep their momentum going forward, and who meanwhile will have to play catch up. Well, for all that and more, come tune in next time here at Paul Walsh Productions as we continue the story of the Skip Barber Community Trophy Season 5 has brought to you on iRacing. But until then, we have been the Skip Barber Community Trophy. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.